សូមអរគុណសូមសម្រួលអរិយាបថ ជាបឋមនាងខ្ញុំមានកិត្តិយសសូមសម្ដែងនៅគាវរកិច្ចគោរពចំពោះលោកជំទាវទឹករ៉េតកំរងអនុរដ្ឋលេខាធិការនៃក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មនិងជាគណៈអធិបតីនៃអង្គសិក្ខាសាលាផ្សព្វផ្សាយនិងសូមគោរពស្វាគមន៍ចំពោះវត្តមានរបស់លោកជំទាវឯកឧត្តមអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីទាំងអស់ដែលមានវត្តមានក្នុងសិក្ខាសាលាផ្សព្វផ្សាយស្ដីអំពីរបាយការណ៍ប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីវិនិយោគមូលធននៅកម្ពុជានាព្រឹកនេះកម្មវិធីបន្ទាប់នាងខ្ញុំមានកិត្តិយសសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវទឹករ៉េតកំរងរដ្ឋលេខាធិការក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មនិងឯកឧត្តមអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីទាំងអស់មេត្តាក្រោកឈរឡើងដើម្បីគោរពភ្លេងជាតិ គោរព សូមអរគុណសូមមេត្តាសម្រួលអរិយាបថ ជាកិច្ចចាប់ផ្ដើមនាងខ្ញុំមានកិត្តិយសសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវទឹករ៉េតកំរងរដ្ឋលេខាធិការក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មមេត្តាថ្លែងសន្ទរកថាបើកសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញ
ចាស់ជាដំបងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពជំទាវអាយដាមលោកស្រីលោកអុកញ៉ាដែលជាបងប្អូនដែលជាតំណាងក្រុមការងារដូចជាតំណាងក្រុមហ៊ុននានាដែលបានអញ្ជើញចូលរួមនៅក្នុងកម្មវិធីព្រឹកនេះជាទីមេត្រីថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំមានសេចក្តីសោមនស្សរីករាយជំនុំមកឲ្យអាយដាមរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មសូមស្វាគមន៍ចំពោះវត្តមានរបស់អាយដាមលោកជំទាវលោកអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីដែលបានចំណាយពេលវេលាដ៏មានតម្លៃអញ្ជើញចូលរួមនៅក្នុងសិក្ខាសាលាផ្សព្វផ្សាយអំពីលទ្ធផលនៃការស្រាវជ្រាវដែលមានឈ្មោះថាប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីនៃការវិនិយោគមូលធននៅកម្ពុជាការស្រាវជ្រាវនេះគឺស្ថិតនៅក្រោមគម្រោង Go for Ecam របស់យើងខ្ញុំជឿថាលោកស្រីភាគច្រើនដែលអញ្ជើញមកនេះបានយល់ច្រើនហើយពីគម្រោង Go for Ecam ដែលជាគម្រោងពាណិជ្ជកម្មអេឡិចត្រូនិករបស់ក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្ម ហើយមានការសហការឧបត្ថម្ភគ្រប់គ្រងផ្នែកហិរញ្ញវត្ថុពីរដ្ឋាភិបាលសហការជាមួយនឹងអង្គការ WTO ប៉ុន្តែនៅក្នុងគម្រោងមួយដែលយើងហៅថាកាត់ថា EIF ចា៎ខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណណាស់ដែលថ្ងៃនេះបានអាយដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីបានចំណាយពេលអញ្ជើញចូលរួមជាមួយក្រុមការងារក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មហើយក៏សូមឆ្លៀតឱកាសនេះសម្ដែងនឹងការកោតសរសើរអរគុណក្រុមការងារ DICO ខាងនាយកដ្ឋានអន្តរជាតិ DICO នឹងគឺមានលោកជាលេជាប្រធានហើយក៏សូមអរគុណលោកស្រីរតនានិងក្រុមការងារដែលបានខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងរៀបចំស្រាវជ្រាវឲ្យមាននៃការអង្កេតនេះឡើងចា៎ដោយអាយដាមលោកជំទាវលោកស្រីបានជ្រាបហើយអំពីការរៀបចំរបាយការណ៍នេះគឺស្ដីអំពីប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីនៃការវិនិយោគមូលធននៅកម្ពុជានេះគឺជាអាទិភាពមួយរបស់ក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មយើងក្នុងគោលដៅសំខាន់គឺផ្ដល់នូវការគ្រប់គ្រងដល់សហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមជាពិសេសក្រុមហ៊ុនក៏ដូចជាសហការីដែលបានចូលរួមនៅក្នុងពាណិជ្ជកម្មតាមប្រព័ន្ធអេឡិចត្រូនិកនេះដើម្បីស្វែងរកនិងអាចទទួលបាននៅហិរញ្ញប្បទានតែទាំងអស់នេះគឺស្របតាមផែនការយុទ្ធសាស្ត្ររបស់រដ្ឋាភិបាលដូចជាស្របតាមផែនការយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រពាណិជ្ជកម្មកម្ពុជាផងដែរចា៎ជាការពិតហើយអាដាមលោកស្រីជ្រាបហើយថាបញ្ហាហិរញ្ញប្បទាននេះគឺពិតជាមានសារៈសំខាន់នៅក្នុងការពង្រីកប្រជាការចាប់ផ្ដើមការរីកចម្រើនរបស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនសហគ្រាសជាពិសេសសម្រាប់ក្រុមហ៊ុនសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមនៅកម្ពុជាជាពិសេសដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងចូលរួមនៅក្នុងពាណិជ្ជកម្មតាមប្រព័ន្ធអេឡិចត្រូនិកនេះដែលយើងតែងតែជួបបញ្ហាសំខាន់គឺការទទួលបានហិរញ្ញប្បទានដោយសារតែកង្វះព័ត៌មានដោយសារតែការយល់ដឹងមិនទាន់បានទូលំទូលាយចា៎ហើយដើម្បីរួមចំណែកពង្រីកលទ្ធភាពឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុនសហគ្រាសទាំងអស់នោះបានទទួលនៅហិរញ្ញប្បទាននេះក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មក៏បានសហការចូលរួមដោយផ្ដើមឲ្យមានការផ្សារភ្ជាប់ធ្វើម៉េចឲ្យសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមរបស់យើងបានផ្សារភ្ជាប់ជាមួយនឹងវិនិយោគិនដែលមានមូលធនដែលជាយើងគិតថាគឺជាប្រភពនៃកំណើនហិរញ្ញប្បទានថ្មីហើយនៅក្រោមគម្រោង Go for Ecam នេះជាពិសេសក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលបានចូលរួមនៅក្នុងការលក់នៅផលិតផលចានៅលើប្រព័ន្ធ Go for Ecam Cambodia របស់យើងនេះចាការស្រាវជ្រាវនេះខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថានឹងបានចូលរួមចំណែកដ៏សំខាន់ក្នុងការលើកកម្ពស់នៅចំណេះដឹងបន្ថែមដូចជាព័ត៌មានជូនដល់សហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមរបស់យើងក្នុងការស្វែងរកដូចជាពង្រីកនៅហិរញ្ញប្បទានធ្វើម៉េចកាត់បន្ថយនៅគម្លាតរវាងសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមជាមួយនឹងវិនិយោគិនដែលមានអតិរេកមូលធនចា៎ហើយរបាយការណ៍នេះត្រូវបានរៀបចំដោយយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ពីអ្នកជំនាញរបស់យើងមានលោកស្រីរតនាជាទីប្រឹក្សាគម្រោងលោកបានជួយសម្របសម្រួលកិច្ចការនេះជាមួយនឹងសហការីហើយក៏បានធ្វើការពិគ្រោះយោបល់ទូលំទូលាយជាមួយនឹងតួអង្គសំខាន់ដែលមានដូចជាក្រុមហ៊ុនមូលធនម្ចាស់អាជីវកម្មតាមប្រព័ន្ធអេឡិចត្រូនិកម្ចាស់អាជីវកម្មបង្កើតថ្មីក្រុមហ៊ុនផ្ដល់សេវាកម្មផ្សេងហើយក៏មានការចូលរួមពីវិស័យសាធារណៈផងដែរចា៎របាយការណ៍នេះគឺចែកចេញជា5សំខាន់5ផ្នែកសំខាន់ហើយទី1គឺនិយាយអំពីសាវតានៃគម្រោង Go for Ecam របស់យើងហើយទី2បញ្ជាក់អំពីដំណើរការផ្ដល់ហិរញ្ញប្បទានជូនដល់ភាគីពាក់ព័ន្ធទី3គឺការគៀងគរហិរញ្ញប្បទាននិងប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីនៃសហគ្រិនភាពនៅកម្ពុជាទី4បង្ហាញជូនអំពីការវិនិយោគមូលធននៅក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ាននិងទី5គឺគន្លឹះនិងអនុសាសន៍សម្រាប់ក្រុមហ៊ុនអាជីវកម្មនៅក្នុងការទទួលបានហិរញ្ញប្បទានដែលខ្លឹមសារទាំងអស់នេះលោកស្រីរតនាដែលជាទីប្រឹក្សានឹងបង្ហាញជូនលោកស្រីដើម្បីបានជ្រាបជាព័ត៌មានជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតខ្ញុំសូមសម្ដែងនឹងការវិតម្លៃនិងកោតសរសើរចំពោះសហការីក្រុមការងារជាពិសេសលោកស្រីទីប្រឹក្សានិងសហការីដូចជាការចូលរួមរបស់អាយដាមលោកជំទាវលោកញ៉ាលោកស្រីទាំងអស់ដែលបានផ្ដល់នៅការសហការជិតស្និទ្ធហើយអាចរៀបចំបាននៅរបាយការណ៍ដ៏មានតម្លៃនេះហើយខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថារបាយការណ៍នឹងផ្ដល់ជាពុទ្ធិដូចជាចំណេះដឹងបន្ថែមជូនដល់សហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមរបស់យើងនៅក្នុងការអាចគៀងគរប្រមូលដូចជាផ្សារភ្ជាប់បង្កើតបាននៅដៃគូសហការដើម្បីពង្រីកនៅប្រភពហិរញ្ញប្បទានរបស់យើងសូមអរគុណជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតដល់កម្មវិធីពង្រឹងស្មារតីកម្មពាណិជ្ជកម្ម EIF ដែលជានិច្ចកាលតែងតែបានចូលរួមគ្រប់គ្រងសហការនៅក្នុងការចូលរួមអភិវឌ្ឍវិស័យពាណិជ្ជកម្មជាមួយនឹងរដ្ឋាភិបាលកម្ពុជា ហើយជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតអរគុណចំពោះការសហការជិតស្និទ្ធពីដៃគូអភិវឌ្ឍន៍ផ្សេងទៀតក៏ដូចជាការសហការជិតស្និទ្ធអំពីវិស័យឯកជនរបស់យើងចាដែលមានទាំងសហគ្រាសធុនតូចមធ្យមក៏ដូចជាក្រុមហ៊ុនសហគ្រាសផ្សេងទៀតផងដែរចាខ្ញុំសូមលើកទឹកចិត្តឲ្យគ្រប់តួអង្គពាក់ព័ន្ធទាំងអស់ចូលរួមបន្តកសាងនិងអភិវឌ្ឍប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីនិងការវិនិយោគនេះពង្រឹងបន្ថែមទៀតដើម្បីជួយសម្រួលជំរុញឲ្យសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមរបស់យើងបានទទួលនៅហិរញ្ញប្បទានដូចជាពង្រីកនៅអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួនហើយខ្ញុំសូមឲ្យសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមក៏បន្តប្រឹងប្រែងដើម្បីស្វែងយល់នៅឱកាសដូចជាពង្រីកចំណេះដឹងបន្ថែមទៀតដើម្បីអាចតាក់ទាញនៅហិរញ្ញប្បទាននេះផងដែរចាជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតសូមអរគុណដូចជាសូមជូនពរវត្តមានរបស់លោកជំទាវអាយដាមលោកញ៉ាលោកស្រីដែលបានអញ្ជើញចូលរួមនៅក្នុងឱកាសនេះសូមទទួលបាននៅសុខភាពល្អសុវត្ថិភាពនិងជោគជ័យនៅក្នុងគ្រប់ភារកិច្ចខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតប្រកាសបើកនៅសិក្ខាសាលាផ្សព្វផ្សាយរបាយការណ៍ស្ដីអំពីប្រព័ន្ធអេកូឡូស៊ីនៃការវិនិយោគមូលធននៅកម្ពុជាចាប់ពីពេលនេះតទៅចាសសូមអរគុណ
នាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពថ្លែងអំណរគុណយ៉ាងជ្រាលជ្រៅចំពោះលោកជំទាវរដ្ឋលេខាធិការសម្រាប់សន្ទរកថាបើកប្រកបដោយអត្ថន័យសម្រាប់របៀបវារៈបន្ទាប់គឺជាការថតរូបអនុស្សាវរីយ៍ដូច្នេះនាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវគណៈអធិបតីលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីជាវាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះអញ្ជើញឡើងលើវេទិកាដើម្បីថតរូបជាវត្ថុអនុស្សាវរីយ៍សូមគោរពអញ្ជើញចា៎សូមគោរពអរគុណមុននឹងបន្តទៅរបៀបវារៈបន្ទាប់នាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវគណៈអធិបតីនិងអង្គពិធីទាំងមូលមេត្តាសម្រាប់អាហារសម្រន់
slides, maybe. Good morning, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to present about some findings on the VC venture capital ecosystem study that I have done for the Ministry of Commerce. So if you can just put the presentation. So just as a way of background, my name is Ratana. I'm an investment and private sector specialist. I have more than 20 years of experience working on investment, and I'm also heavily involved in the ecosystem of startup and SME by helping, for example, Khmer Enterprise or Impact Hub, for example. So let's start with the presentation. Today, the goal is to provide a guidance for SME who are interested in getting some fundings from VC. The approach will be quite practical. You may want, like more information. I would suggest, for you, to refer on the study, which contains, like more information on trends and analysis. So I'm really sorry I do my presentation in English today. So I hope that I will be clear and not speaking too fast. So if you can move to the slides. Thank you very much. Maybe next slide. Okay, and next again. Thank you. So why a study on the VC ecosystem was mandated by the MOC? First, I think that it's part, in fact, of the Go for eCam program. The goal was to do a mapping of the key players in Cambodia to see also through interviews with them if they could be interested in investing in e-commerce players here in the country. But then we realized that companies might not be, like ready to be invested. So the goal will be also today to provide you a more clearer picture of what is private equity and to provide the point of view of investor. So we will introduce, some concept, also explain who are the key players, and give some basic tips and recommendations. Next slide, please. Okay, so back to the basic. I would like, to come back on the definition of private equity and venture capital. We will refer them as PE and VC because it's faster. So private equity, in fact, is simply investment done in private company. Private company are companies that are not listed. I'm explaining that. I would like to highlight that because a lot of people get confused by the term private equity. They confuse with, like private sector. So private equity can be done, for example, also by institutional investor, not only by private company. Venture capital is a subsector of, not subsector, but like is a part of private equity, and it refers, like to investment, in fact, in startup and companies that are believed, like to have a high growth potential. So how does it work? VC and PE take a share in the company, and they expect to get some return on it when they exit. Next, please. So why a company, like in Cambodia, could consider venture capital funding? First, in comparison with a bank loan, for example, you do not need any collateral. And the money is yours, and you can get access normally, to a bigger amount. It's not, in fact, all about money, because the VC and the PE, they can bring much more in terms of expertise, legal expertise, financial, also in terms of business. So they can help you to bring the company to a next stage and a higher level. And they can help you also manage your risk. In addition, they have usually, like great networks also of investor, and they can provide mentorings. All these comes with a cost. In exchange, they take, like a part of your business. They take shares in your company. And it means also that at some point, it can be costly, and it can even lead, to kind of loss of partly of control. In addition, you need, to know that it's time consuming, and it takes a lot of energy from your side to be able, to convince, to get funded through the pitch, also to inform through the due diligence, and also to perform because you don't receive, like the money all in once, but you will need, to reach some milestones to get, like the disbursement. Next, please. So the good news is that there are money available in the sphere of VC and PE for company. The bad news is that it's not an easy process at all. An investor is not, like a service provider. It's really a partner, and it's not exactly a marriage because at some point it's supposed to end, but it's a long-term partnership. My advice is really that the most important is also for you, to understand where you go to when you go, like towards, VC fundings. It's important that you do your homework, that you get familiar with all these concepts. Because by experience and working with both sides, like of companies and finance people, I would say that they don't always, understand each other. They don't speak the same language. They don't have, exactly the same point of view. So if you succeed to understand what they want, it will help you a lot during, like this access to funding, and also to work well simply with them. So next, please. So first of all, I would like maybe, to clarify, like some concepts so that we are all on the same page. Next. Next, please. You probably have seen, for the ones, who have been a bit interested, like in the topic, this slide. It's, it's about, like the financing rounds. You have Series A, Series B, Series C. So you were wondering maybe what it is about. So next slide. This slide, is much more, like detailed. It explains, in fact, that the company goes different stage, of course, of development, from the beginning to, like where they start, and then when they expand. And to each stage of development, you have, like different funding stage, and you have also different actors that are involved in this stage. Next slide, please. So let's go, like a little bit more into details, and also so that you can also get familiar with some wordings. So the first three stages that are involved, like in the early stage, is the seed stage, the startup stage, and the early stage. So it is the moment where the company have the idea, and they are trying to solve a problem. So at the beginning, you have the seed funding, which represent, like the money that you need, to start, like the business, and then the startup funding that is used, for product development, and then you have the early growth funding that you need, to expand, get a team, and boost, like your sales. And after that, you go, to the expansion stage, and the famous, like Series A funding, where here you have like more private equity and venture capital. We will go maybe, like to look, next slide, please. Yes. So we will look at, at the different type of investor that are involved, like in this different stage. I have not mentioned, we will include, like in this study, angel investor. So angel investor, in fact, are high net worth individual or entrepreneurs that are interested, like in investing in companies. They provide patient capital. What is important is that they invest their own money. They might not provide, like big amount, but they have a very strong commitment. In the field of what we are talking today, venture capital and private equity, so these two categories are raising funds from institution and investor to invest in private company. Their goal, of course, is to make a profit and exit at some point. The difference between the two is the target. Usually we associate venture capital more with startup and small company, while private equity is usually, like bigger company. But in Cambodia, honestly, I mean, it's not so clear, the difference, and you can have, like a mix. Another category that is worth to mention is impact investor. Impact investor has played quite a big role in Cambodia. It's a different category of, it's in fact, like VC or PE, but their objective is to have an impact indeed. So they invest, like in project linked, to the climate change, to people, with like anything that has done, like for example, solution provided, to the poor. Also in IT. Impact investor also want to measure this impact, so that makes them a bit different with the others. Now that, we have seen, who are the players, who are, like the different category, let's see how it translates in Cambodia. So next slide, please. We will see, like who are the key players and also their characteristic. Next slide, thank you. Few facts. In fact, you do not have a lot of players in Cambodia. And you do not have, like many deals happening every day or every year, except maybe, indeed in the field of impact investment, where there has been, like a lot of big deals in finance companies and in MFI, for example, in microfinance institution. You don't have, like a lot of sectors that are invested by VC. Why? The importance of MFI, in simply because the topic of access to finance is important, and also the size of the banks and microfinance institutions make it quite easier for company. You also don't have, much regional players, and they're not. They might have, like some investment, but they're not, like based in Cambodia. And as I said, here we don't distinguish, like that much VC and PE. Sometimes, we refer to them, like as the same group. Majority of deals are more on the early stage. Unfortunately, companies, like that are bigger, and even who have received some funding before, have sometimes difficulty in getting additional funding for the expansion phase. That said, one good news is that you have in Cambodia a very dynamic support ecosystem. You have government, donors, social enterprise who have recently decided, to invest a lot to build the ecosystem to support, companies here. So what do they provide? They provide, coaching, mentoring. They're organizing, a competition. Sometimes, they set up some accelerator program. So Now, I mean, let's go more, you know, like into details, depending on who you are. Next slide, please. So if you're a startup, different possibilities, you know, like are for you in terms of seed and startup funding. You can get, you know, like some prize money during startup competition. You can get also some money, I mean, from incubator, accelerator. You can get access, I mean, to individuals, angel investors, such as Kane, ID Investor Club, Startup and Angel, for example. Of course, venture capitalists are, you know, like one of these important category with SADIF, Octan, OBOR, CEO Master Club, CIC. And then impact investor also can be interesting, I mean, to look at. Let's start, you know, like with a little bit more details about these source of financing. Next slide, please. So one few words about, you know, like the startup competition. In fact, in Cambodia, you have a lot of startup competition, local, but also regional. I'm thinking about, you know, like recently the VC night by Khmer Enterprise, all the smart program, Smart Start, Smart Spark, program on agriculture, program on tourism. You have the reverse innovation program by Techo Startup Center, and also recently organized by Koika, the Bender's Digital Startup Competition. At regional level, you have, for example, She Loves Tech every year, and also Seedstar in the past. The price is $5,000 to $10,000, which is quite a lot, I mean, for seed money. It represents, you know, like the amount that maybe, I mean, you can get from a bank. And there's no equity involved. So to start, I would say that it's quite interesting. Accelerator program offer the advantage of providing, you know, like and mentoring support, and in addition, sometimes some financing, usually during also some startup competition that are organized with the program. But apparently, I mean, there are also some new program in town. I heard about. I had not time, I mean, to meet them. But another accelerator program like Choice Accelerator, which has arrived and who will dedicate 1 million to invest in startup. So it's one thing, I mean, that you can do, I mean, to start with. Let's go directly now, I mean, to next slide, please. Yes, I mean, to a little bit, you know, like more, you know, an institution. So angels. Angel investors are quite an interesting category because they offer, you know, like a lot of potential. We're not here yet. I would say that angels in Cambodia are not, you know, like as organized or sophisticated, or they don't understand maybe, you know, like the dynamic of startup investing like we could see, you know, in other countries. But this is definitely a category, I mean, to watch. Kane, Cambodia Angel Investor Network, which is part of CIC, is quite interesting also to look at because they have, you know, like a group of members, and what they do is that they offer, you know, like some training programs for their member. I mean, to understand more, you know, like how to do. I mean, to invest in startup. And they do also some matchmaking with a startup, you know, like doing some pitching. So as I said, we're not here yet, but in the future to watch, it's definitely, I mean, to watch. And of course, you have also individuals, high net worth individuals, where you can get, you know, like some funding, but they're less visible. It would be mainly, you know, like through network. So these, I mean, we can maybe, I mean, less help you, but in Cambodia, it's quite easy to get access to people. So it's not also to, it's also, I mean, to take into account. Let's see now, like venture capital. I take here an example of SADIF, like the Smart Axiata Digital Innovation Fund. We have the pleasure today, to have Borakem, who's managing, the fund at Mekong Strategic Partner. So SADIF has started quite a while ago, and I must say that they have, probably, the best portfolio in terms of tech startup. They are invested in Nyam24, in Stay, Jonak, Banji, Salah, Morocco, Agribody. Yes. So they are the ones probably that are the most known in the field of tech startup. Next, please. Maybe one word, about impact investor. That I said that they're usually, invested, in big finance, project. That said, you also have a few that are looking, to be more to invest in smaller projects. Uberis is one of them. In addition, they're also offering, a strong support to the company that they invest in, and they might be, a good also company, to look at. Another category, which is a bit specific, is the category of corporate VC. So corporate VC as a special category where you have a company who have, I would say, a private arm in investing in some startup because they're looking for synergies. I don't know exactly if they label themselves as corporate VC, but IG Group is maybe an example that we can take. They have invested, they are themselves, a company, and they set up, I would say, a platform with, the different companies, and they invested recently in startup like Delight Tech and Meet Doctor, tech startup, where they said that there are some synergies possible. So these are for the source of funding for startup. And now next slide. Let's see for SME. If you're an SME, and depends, of course, of the definition of an SME, because here SME, are smaller. But most VC and PE, they are interested, in growth stage company. So then you have the possibility here again to have access, maybe not to angel, but at least strategic investors. VC also can finance you. Private equity and impact investor again. Next slide. So I would like, to present maybe, to say a few words about the CIC group, which is quite interesting because they offer, a full ecosystem. They are part of the CIC Capital Partner, which is, the VCPE part, is part of the CIC group, and they invest, in local companies. Tech startup, etc. But in addition, they have the group has created a full ecosystem that includes an incubator program, Bio, an angel program, Kane, and CIC Capital Partner. They work also in close collaboration with the Young Entrepreneur Association. And what is interesting is that they have been able to find a solution to the problems faced by local entrepreneurs. They offer, they can pool funds, to offer lendings. They support, their members, through different things, and they provide extensive, trainings and building their internal capacity and human resource. Next, please. So regarding private equity, I think that if I have to mention one, it would be EMIA, Emerging Market in Investment. emerging market investment advisor. So they are here also since I think the beginning of private equity in Cambodia. They have started very small with 20 million, and they gradually, have been able, to raise more fundings. They have really a beautiful portfolio of company, including AMK, FCC, First Finance, Forte, Kirisu, Westline. So, they are, the one maybe, to look at if you're looking, for quite, a big amount to raise. I'm not sure about the minimum, but it's not under $1 million for sure. And it's more around, I think between maybe 1 and 5. So yes, it's a good example. You also have in private equity, you also have Belt Road Capital, maybe to mention, but they are more, I think, on the tech sector. An example, also of venture capital, Obor Capital is also interesting, to look at, because they have been able, to invest both in a small company like Cabo Ticket and Deli Shop, in e-commerce. They were amongst, the first to be invested in e-commerce company. And aside from that, they are also invested in infrastructure company like K-Wash or Gaia. They have been able, to exit from their e-commerce company, but the feedback was that it required, a lot of energy. They earned some money on it, but in comparison, was it worth? Well, yes, of course, but just to say that it's it was not so easy. To train them and also to exit. Another examples. Next slide. Maybe on impact investing, Incitor also is a name that you need to keep in mind. They are doing impact. They have investment in great companies like Azela, Boost, First Finance, K-Wash, Joma. They have been quite, I would say, silent during the COVID, because they had, they had problems, in having, the team coming. But now, they're fully operational, and they're very active. So definitely a company to consider. And another example that maybe you can think about is companies that are doing also some advisory on the side. I'm talking about here Devenco. They are company that are not managing funds. However, they provide on the side advisory services also to raise some funding, and they from their side they are invested also themselves in K-Wash, also Gaia, European Medical Center, in environmental solution as well. So these type of company are mixed, but they can also be an option. So next slide. That's the thing. If you wish, to get access, to these VC, PE companies, it's interesting maybe, to look at their characteristic, the source of their funding, the type of instrument they preferred, if they invest, only in equity, or if they do, some convertible debt, the industry focus also, if they are regional player or not, if they have, a fund, or if they do that on a project base, if they take minority or majority scale, and if they provide also additional services like advisory or accelerator program. Knowing this characteristic will help you in fine-tuning your approach. Be aware that all these companies, they're quite, in fact, flexible, and they are always interested to know about you and to see, you know, like what is the potential that you can offer. But of course, it's also for you, I mean, not to lose time. If they don't, you know, like their profile is not fitting, then it's not maybe worth, or it's worth to wait and to get better prepared. In the next 3 slides, I have put, you know, like some of the key players and put also the characteristic. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So, so here, you know, like the key players with their website, the target, the activity, in the sense that sometimes, I mean, they also have, you know, like incubation program or advisory, the known investment, and their characteristic, and the type of investment preferred. So I think that there's a document that have been distributed. I mean, you can refer to these and have a look and get to know them better. So the name I mentioned, of course, is only, you know, like a part of the universe of potential, you know, like VC or PE. This universe is not that large, but there are names, I mean, that you want to know, definitely. So maybe, I mean, we can move to next. Next slide again, and next one. Yeah, again, please. Next one. So yes, maybe, you know, like few words about the regional VC, because the you know, like the pool of VC is not like that big here. Maybe and some of them are going, I mean, to look at regional players. Very few have a presence here in Cambodia, even if they are invested. So access is more complicated. I mean, you need, I mean, to know that. Impact investors are probably, you know, like the category that is the most represented here. I'm mentioning, for example, a firm like Blue Orchard, for example. I mentioned here also some names, you know, like of companies that are interested, that have interest. So IIX, Impact Investment Exchange, Triodos, Incofin, Gobi Partner, ADB Venture, Navy's Capital Partner, Send Founder, Blue Orchard. I mean, these are a few names, but yes, and having, I would say, a regional approach, you know, like some companies here have a regional approach. It can definitely help, I would say, or not, and we will see why. What just I wanted, I mean, to say is that there's no really shortcuts, unless, I mean, you have, you know, like access through a network, you know, like someone that knows someone. If you have, you know, like no clue how to access to them, you would need, I mean, to do, you know, indeed your homework and find information about them. I have the example of one company that tried, I mean, to get access, I mean, to regional funding. She contacted 200 VC around the region and got maybe, you know, like possibility to get 5 of them replied, and I think that she got the possibility, I mean, to talk, I mean, to only 2 of them. So that's the reality. It's not, I would say, the most easiest way, I mean, to get fundings, but it might be worth, especially indeed, I mean, if you have like a regional approach, or if you're well organized, not to be, you know, like, I mean, it's worth to consider, but maybe, but you'd better be very, very well prepared. Next, please. The challenges, in fact, of not having, like that much VC, the reason why, I mean, we don't, like have that much regional VC in Cambodia is because they mention, and all these reasons, in fact, are mentioned also by local venture capital. First is the lack of investable pipeline. Most companies are not very well prepared. In addition, the size of the internal market, the size of Cambodia, make it sometimes, quite difficult to get, some return. Cambodian company, in addition, are lacking defensibility. So this concept is interesting. It means that they cannot defend if you have like a big players coming in Cambodia. Let's, make an example with in e-commerce. Well, I mean, for example, if you have, like Lazada coming and settle here, it's going, to be very difficult because they will be able, to play on the pricing and how, to defend if they crush, the price. So Cambodian companies, in that sense, they're lacking, of this specific way, to defend because they're not big enough. VC can also be sometimes specialized regionally, and I would say, geographically. So sometimes, they cover, like some countries and not others. So it will be difficult also to get access to them. And one thing also is that in Cambodia, you don't have, you have a lack of demonstrated success in the sense that you don't have yet a lot of exits apart from, of course, like the finance sector. And it's not possible, in addition, for now, to sell, like your shares in the stock market. So this is, like a big hurdle. In addition, it's not very well known, VC and PE, and therefore you have a limited local expertise in Cambodia, and it's not so easy, to train people on this topic. And finally, it's costly. It's costly, to source company and to do a due diligence in Cambodia from far or from here. It has, like you have a matter of cost because human resource, indeed, to do it is also costly. Let's move to the next topic, which is, to provide, some hints on what to expect and how to prepare for investment. For that, can you move to the next slide? I think next. Next slide, please. Yes. So for that, we will look, like at a typical deal flow, what we call, like the pipeline, the sourcing. So the numbers that I have put, like comes from a study that has been done, I think, in 2017. It's not, like it's just to give an example. So, for example, for 100, like companies that are considered, you will, at the end, only 28 will meet the management, only 10 will be reviewed, and finally, that for maybe one investment. So the venture capital, the PE, they will go, through a whole process, which will be, the sourcing, the screening, the review, the due diligence, and they will, it will go, through an investment committee, and at the end, they maybe, they will release the money and invest in a company. So you could see that it's a process, which is, like quite cumbersome. It's only that you need to keep in mind, it's not their money. They raise the money, from investor. So it's, they're very careful about it. And for that, next slide, please. What they will look at, they will have, like few selection parameters at different stage. Of course, during a presentation pitch, they will, like assess if you good, to go for the next stage on screening. They will look at your cash flow. They will look at the management, and they will go deeper and deeper and deeper to be able, to do evaluation and at the end provide, like a contract, a deal. From your side, what it will require, of course, like a lot of time, a lot of preparation and commitment. Next slide, please. There are, like a lot of things that they will look at. They will look, like at the characteristic of the entrepreneur. They will look, like at the type of idea, venture that you want to do. They will look also at the environment, the ecosystem, and they, of course, look at what kind of deal, they're going to propose. Here are, like few things. It's not exhaustive, but you will see that indeed, there's a lot of things, to examine. Next slide, please. So I would say that in summary, there are, like for you also some technical aspects. For them, technical aspect, to consider, and for you also to understand. So the first thing is that time horizon is not the same. You might need the money immediately, but they will take, like some time, to do the due diligence. So this is something that you need, first, to take into account. And after, of course, you will need, to look, and you will need, to think about the pitching, and to understand, like the type of investment they propose. Is it going to be equity? Is it to be a convertible note? Which is, like that first, that will be converted in equity. Are they going, to prepare to offer, a minority or majority share in your company? What will be the valuation? What are the expected return that they want, from your company, to achieve? And the due diligence, of course, it's a whole thing, to prepare. And finally, you need also to understand the term sheet. So all these things, are very technical, like aspect that I'm not going, to cover here. Because it's not worth, because we have a limited amount of time. And what I just want to say is that if you really go, towards all the process, it's really worth, to understand what it is about and understand and speak the same language, so that you can indeed have a little bit more leverage and a little bit more, like capacity to discuss and to negotiate, because sometimes, we see that some deals are failing because the owner of the company, don't understand. They don't agree about, like the valuation. Usually the valuation, is estimated at much more from the company and less from the VC side. So being able, to understand all these concepts will help you really, to be able to negotiate, I believe, and make it happen. So finally, would be good also to provide, like the investor perspective, as I have interviewed them fully, and get, like some tips and recommendation also from their side. Next, please. So what investor look in a startup? So the first thing is that they want to know if the business model solve, an issue or not. It looks a bit, like weird when we say things like that, but in fact, it makes sense. Companies, PE and VC, what they want, to invest, they invest, like in company who are supposed to have, like a big growth potential. So you need, there's a need, for innovation in it. You need, to distinguish yourself, and you need, to prove, like the potential, and to be able, to get, like the traction, the number of customers who will, buy your product or buy your services. You need, to solve a problem and be somewhere, like kind of innovative. And with this idea, how will the startup, like make money on it? It is important. It's good, to have idea, but if you don't make money and if you're not able, to make money on it, there's no point. Maybe then it's better, to go and get, like some grant funding, or like go and work with donors, because if you can't make money, it's not like the right place to be, because they want to get out like with some profit from their investment. So how is the traction? So the traction is the growth potential, simply, like the customer the number of customers that you will have in the future. Traction is really important. Of course, they will, and a lot of companies are underestimating it. You need, to have a decent financial model. If in your model, like it makes no sense, how are they going, to be able to evaluate, like your prospect? Of course, how good is the product roadmap, and also if you have thinking about, like the industry competition, if you issue your product and you can be copied, or there's so many people, doing the same thing, of course, like there's no competitive advantage in it. You need at some point, to try to differentiate yourself. And then, yeah, in a nutshell, they look at the potential, your potential to grow. The team also is very important. And sometimes also if synergies are possible, inside their existing portfolio. So I'm going, to mention, like some quotes from investor, because I found them, like really relevant. So next slide, please. About your motivation. First of all, you need, to ask yourself why you want, to reach to a VC instead, of taking, like a loan in a bank, and how, in fact, they can help. As I mentioned, they can provide a lot of things, a lot of expertise. So you need, to be maybe able, to get a fair sense of what they can bring, to you. Because don't forget, it's a partnership. Important, very important, to come prepared and do your homework before. Another advice is maybe it's better to try to raise fund when you're not, in an urgent need for it, because of course then your negotiation power will be less. What matters for investor, I mentioned it already. The focus, will need, to be to solve the problem instead of raising funds. Raising funds, yes, but for what? So that's important. To keep that for you to keep the focus. Traction also. Think about it. Like how are you going to grow your customer? Mentioned that a deal breaker would be, the discovery of financial and accountability. If accounts are not clean, private investors they don't like that. So it can be a deal breaker. And finally, something interesting is that when something went bad, it's usually linked to people. It's rarely because of technical issues. So people indeed, matters, and particularly, like the team, and particularly the founder of the startup and the company. Next, please. And finally, maybe, like a word about the pitch. We hear a lot because of all this pitching competition, how a good pitch is important. Yes, it's true, but there are a few things, that you need, to take into account. The most important, like, is not, in fact, the pitch, but indeed the fundamentals behind. A lot of investors mentioned that sometimes, I mean, you come and you try, I mean, to make it nice. You put, you know, like some projections that are not realistic at all, and they will see that because they are, you know, like seasoned investors. So they will see that immediately, you know, like that it's not fitting, financial are not, you know, like matching. So don't try, I mean, just to make it up. Yeah, I mean, try to be realistic. And projection are one thing, but you can project whatever you want. Actual numbers, you know, are also important. Sometimes, I would say, for most company. Better, of course, I mean, to come well prepared. Usually what they see is that the one who are the most, the better prepared are more mature company, I mean, who are, you know, like very serious about, you know, raising money. And finally, don't forget, even if you're not, you know, like a good public speaker, it doesn't really matter. It matters during the competition, maybe, but finally, I mean, what matters is really the fundamentals. So next, and for the final slide on the recommendation. So finally, a few recommendations that are really super basic, but maybe, I mean, it's good, I mean, to remind them. First of all, you know, like, do your homework for sure. You need, I mean, to know what you're talking about. You need, I mean, to understand about the different type of financing and which PE and VC would fit more for you. Simply because you don't have time, they don't have time. So, I mean, save your time, I mean, by doing, you know, like the work before. Prepare. It's super important that you maximize the chance. You have seen, you know, like the funnel. You don't want, I mean, to be, you know, like take out of the pipeline from the very beginning. Get support if you need it. As I mentioned, you have a lot of accelerator training and also more, I would say, professional companies. I'm thinking of, you know, like Profitons or companies like Seva Capital. I mean, who can provide, you know, like support in organizing and making your deal, you know, in a way that indeed VC will be able, you know, like to find, you know, like more interest in it. Learn and be familiar with some technical, you know, like points. Dilution, minority shares, valuation, etc. It seems a bit scary. It's not like that much if you get into it, and you have like a lot of way, I mean, to get access to more information and training on internet. And finally, I mean, my final recommendation would be manage your expectation. It's not easy process, not at all, even, I mean, for VC. So I mean, you need, I mean, to not expect, you know, like too much in terms of yeah, you know, like valuation, in terms of, you know, like of timeline, etc. But at the end, it can be really rewarding because VC can really bring you to the next level. And through, you know, like their synergies and expertise. So that ends my presentation. I think that I have been quite long, but thank you very much, I mean, for your attention. And if you have any question, I'm available. I think.
សូមអរគុណលោកស្រីរតនាសម្រាប់ការធ្វើបទបង្ហាញយ៉ាងក្បោះក្បាយ Thank you so much for your very comprehensive presentation. So please remain on stage in case there is any questions. អង្គពិធីទាំងមូលសម្រាប់កម្មវិធីសំណួរចម្លើយលោកជំទាវឯកឧត្តមអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីអាចលើកជាសំណួរមកកាន់វាគ្មិននៅពេលនេះសម្រាប់អ្នកដែលចូលរួមតាមប្រព័ន្ធអនឡាញក៏អាចលើកជាសំណួរមកកាន់វាគ្មិនរបស់យើងក្រុមការងារនឹងធ្វើការសម្របសម្រួល
No questions, so it was clear. It was clear? Okay.
I guess the presentation was perfect, so everybody understands. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, and yeah, maybe later. Thank you.
សម្រាប់របៀបវារៈបន្ទាប់គឺជាការចែករំលែកបទពិសោធន៍ដោយផ្ទាល់ពីក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលប្រកបអាជីវកម្មតាមប្រព័ន្ធអេឡិចត្រូនិកនាងខ្ញុំមានកិត្តិយសសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាកែវមុំប្រធានសមាគមសហគមន៍ស្ត្រីកម្ពុជានិងជាម្ចាស់ក្រុមហ៊ុន Lily Food Industry Co Ltd និងលោក Joshua Jones នាយកគ្រប់គ្រងនៃក្រុមហ៊ុន Three Corner Coffee Co Ltd អញ្ជើញឡើងលើវេទិកា
ចាជាបឋមនាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពលោកជំទាវតកក្រេកម្រងរដ្ឋលេខាធិការក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មចានឹងជាប្រធានអង្គប្រជុំក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះផងដែរចាសូមគោរពឯកឧត្តមលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាលោកស្រីបងប្អូនទាំងអស់ដែលបានចូលរួមនៅក្នុងកម្មវិធីថ្ងៃនេះហើយព្រមទាំងចូលរួមតាមប្រព័ន្ធ Zoom អនឡាញផងដែរចានាងខ្ញុំឈ្មោះកែវមុំជាប្រធានក្រុមហ៊ុនផលិតនំស្រួយលីលីហើយក៏ជាប្រធានសមាគមសហគ្រិនស្ត្រីកម្ពុជាផងដែរចាអញ្ចឹងថ្ងៃនេះមានមោទនភាពដែលបានឡើងមកចែករំលែកនៅបទពិសោធន៍ខ្លះៗអំពីការធ្វើអាជីវកម្មរបស់ផលិតផលរបស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនផលិតនំស្រួយលីលីផងដែរចាដូចលោកស្រីរតនាបានមានប្រសាសន៍អញ្ចឹងការរស់ស៊ីគឺយើងមានជាច្រើនផ្នែកផងដែរនៃការដែលយើងពង្រឹងនិងពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មអញ្ចឹងមិញនេះខ្ញុំបានអង្គុយកត់មួយចំនួនយើងឃើញថាអាជីវកម្មពីមុនហើយនិងបច្ចុប្បន្នគឺវាមានខុសគ្នាច្រើនចាពីមុន10-20ឆ្នាំមុនការវិនិយោគគឺវិនិយោគដោយខ្លួនឯង 100% ហើយនឹងអាចមានកម្ចីខ្លះៗពីមិត្តភ័ក្តិបងប្អូនផងដែរในការចាប់ផ្ដើមអាជីវកម្មខ្ញុំចង់សាមរាយខ្លះអំពីការវិនិយោគរស់ស៊ីនេះខ្ញុំកត់ទៅគឺមានថា10ចំណុចចា10ចំណុចនៅការប្រកបអាជីវកម្មបច្ចុប្បន្នទី1គឺយើងអាចធ្វើការរស់ស៊ីដោយវិនិយោគ 100% ខ្លួនឯងអាហ្នឹងវាងាយស្រួលការសម្រេចចិត្តធ្វើអីក៏ងាយស្រួលដែរចាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំចង់លើកពីបញ្ហាហៅថាគុណសម្បត្តិនិងគុណវិបត្តិហើយពិបាកឬក៏ងាយស្រួលតើអាជីវកម្មមួយណាដែលមានបញ្ហាពិបាកខ្លះហើយងាយស្រួលយ៉ាងម៉េចខ្លះចាអញ្ចឹងទី1គឺការវិនិយោគ 100% វាងាយស្រួលការសម្រេចចិត្តអីក៏អត់មានបញ្ហាអីដែរខុសត្រូវគឺខ្លួនឯងចាការវិនិយោគទី2គឺការវិនិយោគនិងការទទួលបានជំនួយសម្រាប់ការ start up business យើងឃើញថាបច្ចុប្បន្នគឺមានអង្គការស្ថាប័នខ្លះដែលគាត់បានជួយចាជាពិសេសក្រសួងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុក៏បានបង្កើតនៅfund មួយចំនួនដែលសម្រាប់ការ start up business គាត់ជួយភាគរយខ្លះផងដែរការងារនេះតើតើយើងមានហៅថា business plan ត្រឹមត្រូវចាអញ្ចឹងបានយើងអាចជួយបានហើយក៏យើងមានដើមទុនខ្លះដែរបានគេអាចជួយបានសម្រាប់ការបង្កើតអាជីវកម្មនេះផងដែរហើយវិនិយោគទី3ជាការទទួលបាននៅមូលនិធិចាសម្រាប់ពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងធ្វើអាជីវកម្មយើងបង្កើតអាជីវកម្មហើយពេលខ្លះយើងចង់ពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មក៏មានអង្គការមួយចំនួនគេមានជា fund ចាហៅថាជំនួយឥតសំណងចាអញ្ចឹងយើងចង់ទិញម៉ាស៊ីនយើងចង់ពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មអីឲ្យតែយើងមាន business plan ច្បាស់លាស់ហើយត្រូវនឹងគោលបំណងរបស់គេក៏គេអាចជួយយើងបានដែរហើយអង្គការខ្លះគេជួយទៅតាមអ្វីដែលយើងចង់បានអង្គការខ្លះយើងធ្វើអ្វីដែលគេចង់បានទៅវិញអញ្ចឹងតើមួយណាដែលយើងអាចបំពេញលក្ខខណ្ឌនឹងបានគឺយើងអាចទទួលបានលុយតែជំនួយឥតសំណងនឹងដែរប៉ុន្តែការងារហ្នឹងក៏យើងត្រូវការធ្វើការកត់ត្រានឹង business plan ឲ្យបានច្បាស់លាស់ហើយតើលុយដែលគេជួយយើងហ្នឹងតើយើងបានជួយអ្វីខ្លះដល់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋផ្ដល់ឱកាសការងារធ្វើចំនួនប្រមាណអ្នកជួយដល់ជនក្រីក្រចំនួនប្រមាណអ្នកហើយប្រមាណតើតើមានផលដូចថាទទួលបានផលដល់ប្រជាជនដែលមានចំណូលទាបផងដែរទើបយើងអាចទទួលបាននៅផលហ្នឹងមិនមែនរាល់ business សុទ្ធតែទទួលបានទេអត់ទេចាតើតើ business ហ្នឹងអាចផ្ដល់ឱកាសការងារជួយដល់អ្នកផ្ទៃបាតក្រោមនៃពីរ៉ាមីតនោះផងដែរចាហើយការវិនិយោគទី4នេះគឺការទទួលបានជាជំនួយបច្ចេកទេស ចាអញ្ចឹងការទទួលបានជំនួយបច្ចេកទេសហ្នឹងពេលខ្លះយើងធ្វើដោយហងចាក់ជាពិសេសគឺអ្នកផលិតតែម្ដងអ្នកផលិតគឺនៅមានបញ្ហាច្រើនចាទៅលើគុណភាពសុវត្ថិភាពស្តង់ដារផ្សេងចាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងផលិតដែលយើងមិនមានស្តង់ដារច្បាស់លាស់គ្រប់គ្រងស្តង់ដារអនាម័យអីច្បាស់លាស់ក៏យើងពិបាកក្នុងការពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មក្នុងការនាំចេញផលិតផលទៅប្រទេសខាងក្រៅចង់រកអ្នកវិនិយោគចង់អីក៏ពិបាកមែនទែនអញ្ចឹងជំនួយបច្ចេកទេសទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងគឺយើងអាចទទួលបានពីខាង Mystery UNIDO SES APO អង្គការផ្សេងជាច្រើនផងដែរចាគាត់មកពង្រឹងយើងជួយនៅហៅថាផ្ដល់ជាបច្ចេកទេសចាដូចជាការគ្រប់គ្រងគុណភាពសុវត្ថិភាពការធ្វើម៉េចដើម្បីឲ្យកាត់បន្ថយថ្លៃដើមចាធ្វើម៉េចដើម្បីឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងមានអនាម័យល្អចាគ្រប់គ្រងរឿងការខូចខាតអីផ្សេងហ្នឹងផងដែរអញ្ចឹងបើយើងធ្វើការគ្រប់គ្រងស្តង់ដារនឹងបានគឺក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងងាយស្រួលក្នុងការពង្រីកហើយក៏ងាយស្រួលក្នុងការរកអ្នកវិនិយោគផងដែរអញ្ចឹងក្រុមហ៊ុនលីលីគឺយើងទទួលបានបច្ចេកទេសពីអង្គការច្រើនមែនទែននៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាពិសេសទទួលបានតាមរយៈ Mystery ចាជាច្រើនបានធ្វើឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុនលីលីយើងអាចពង្រីកនៅសក្តានុពលរបស់យើងបានយ៉ាងលឿនផងដែរហើយក៏យើងបានទទួល fund ជំនួយឥតសំណងពីអង្គការ SDS ផងដែរចាអញ្ចឹងទាំងអស់នេះហើយវាគឺជាមុខមាត់របស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនមួយដែលធ្វើឲ្យបងប្អូនជាពលរដ្ឋយើងមានជំនឿចិត្តក្នុងការគ្រប់គ្រងផលិតផលរបស់នំស្រួយលីលីចាហើយទី5គឺការវិនិយោគរួមចាដូច JV ចាអញ្ចឹង JV នៅពេលដែលយើងឈានទៅដល់ JV នេះគឺតើតែយើងមានការអនុវត្តស្តង់ដារឲ្យបានច្បាស់លាស់នៅការកត់ត្រាបញ្ជីស្នាមឲ្យបានច្បាស់លាស់ផងដែរចាកាលណាបើយើងធ្វើការរកស៊ីយើងមិនមានការកត់ត្រាបញ្ជីស្នាមច្បាស់លាស់ទេក៏យើងពិបាកក្នុងការរកអ្នកវិនិយោគដែរដោយលោកស្រីរតនាមានប្រសាសន៍អញ្ចឹងគឺគេត្រូវធ្វើ due diligence ចា due diligence តើតែយើងបញ្ជីស្នាមច្បាស់លាស់ណាស់ជាពិសេសក្រុមហ៊ុនលីលីបច្ចុប្បន្នគឺយើងបានសហការជាមួយនឹងខាងក្រុមហ៊ុនជប៉ុនចាកាមេរ៉ាសេកាហ្នឹងដែលជាមុខមាត់មួយរបស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលយើងអាចចាប់ដៃគូជាមួយនឹងក្រុមហ៊ុនកាមេរ៉ាសេកាដែលជាក្រុមហ៊ុនផលិតនំដែលធំជាងគេនៅក្នុងប្រទេសជប៉ុនផងដែរអញ្ចឹងការដែលយើងចាប់ដៃគូជាមួយប្រទេសជប៉ុនគឺមិនងាយទេពិបាកខ្លាំងណាស់ចាពិបាកខ្លាំងណាស់ពួកគាត់គឺ strict មែនតើនៅពេលដែលគាត់ចង់មកវិនិយោគជាមួយយើងគឺគាត់នឹងចុះមកឆែកហើយឆែកទៀតត្រួតពិនិត្យហើយត្រួតពិនិត្យទៀតអញ្ចឹងអ្វីដែលយើងចង់ចាប់ដៃគូជាមួយខាងជប៉ុនសំខាន់គឺភាពស្មោះត្រង់ចាឲ្យតែមានភាពស្មោះត្រង់យើងដឹងថាចំណុចខ្លាំងយើងត្រង់ណាចំណុចខ្សោយយើងត្រង់ណាយើងខ្វះខាតត្រង់ចំណុចណាយើងមានបញ្ហាត្រង់ចំណុចណាគឺយើងបើកចំហយើងត្រូវតែប្រាប់គាត់ទាំងអស់ចាសូម្បីតែបញ្ជីស្នាមក៏ដោយការកត់ត្រារបស់យើងនៅមានបញ្ហាត្រង់ណារឿងអីត្រង់ណាគឺយើងត្រូវតែបើកចំហប្រាប់គាត់ទាំងអស់អញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងស្មោះត្រង់មានភាពស្មោះត្រង់ប្រាប់គាត់ទាំងអស់ហើយគាត់នឹងធ្វើការដូចថាជួយយើងត្រឡប់មកវិញដើម្បីបំពេញនៅអ្វីដែលយើងខ្វះខាតចាអញ្ចឹងហើយធ្វើឲ្យយើងអាចសហការគ្នាបានដោយរលូនអញ្ចឹងធ្វើការសហការដើម្បីបានសហការជាមួយជប៉ុនចំណាយពេលប្រហែលជា3ឆ្នាំចា3ឆ្នាំជាងចាចាអញ្ចឹងហើយបានទៅចាប់ដៃគូបានអញ្ចឹងពិបាកប៉ុន្តែបើចាប់ដៃគូជាមួយជនជាតិជប៉ុនហើយអាជីវកម្មគឺរបស់យើងគឺមាននិរន្តរភាពយូរអង្វែងទៅមុខចាមិនងាយបរាជ័យប្រេះផ្ដាស់ទេគឺគាត់ធ្វើអ្វីគឺគាត់ច្បាស់លាស់ដោយសារគាត់បានសិក្សាលម្អិតអស់គ្រប់ជ្រុងជ្រោយកន្លែងណាមានបញ្ហាអីត្រូវដោះយ៉ាងម៉េចត្រូវធ្វើយ៉ាងម៉េចគឺគាត់ដោះទាំងអស់គាត់រកចំណុចខ្វះខាតនោះមកបំពេញបន្ថែមទាំងអស់ហើយការងារអាជីវកម្មនៅពេលដែលគាត់ចាប់សហការជាមួយយើងហើយគឺអាជីវកម្មនេះគឺមានសភាពយូរអង្វែងចាដូចយើងដឹងស្រាប់ហើយថាក្រុមហ៊ុននៅជប៉ុនមានក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលមានអាយុកាល100ឆ្នាំឡើងគឺមានច្រើនមែនតែម្ដងក្រុមហ៊ុនខ្លះរហូតដល់1000ជាងឆ្នាំក៏មានដែរចាជាង1000ឆ្នាំក៏មានដែរនៅក្នុងប្រទេសជប៉ុន គឺពិតជាមានហើយអញ្ចឹងហើយដែលថាអាជីវកម្មគាត់គឺធ្វើអ្វីដោយស្តង់ដាចាមានន័យថាការនៅពេលដែលមានស្តង់ដាទោះបីយើងជាម្ចាស់មិននៅឬ CEO មិននៅក៏មានអ្នកខាងក្រោមគាត់ធ្វើការដោយរលូនទៅតាម system ប្រព័ន្ធ system ច្បាស់លាស់ផងដែរចាហើយបើសិនជាយើងធ្វើ joint venture ជាមួយតែមិត្តភ័ក្តិបងប្អូនឬក៏នៃនេះមិត្តភ័ក្តិអីបងប្អូនចាហ្នឹងមិនសូវជាស្មុគស្មាញទេចាគាត់មិនសូវជាស៊ីជម្រៅទៅលើការឆែកបញ្ជីស្តង់ដាអីប្រហែលទេឲ្យតែគាត់មានលុយគាត់អាចចូលរកស៊ីជាមួយយើងបានអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលមានមិត្តភ័ក្តិបងប្អូនចូលលុយហ្នឹងមកគឺគាត់ត្រូវតែមានខ្លួនចូលមកអាចដូចថាលូកលាន់នៅក្នុងការងាររបស់យើងផងដែរអញ្ចឹងពេលខ្លះយើងចង់ធ្វើនេះគាត់ថាមិនកើតទេយើងចង់ធ្វើនោះក៏គាត់ថាអូបញ្ហានេះបញ្ហានោះកើតឡើងក៏ពិបាកអដំណើរយើងទៅមុខដែរអញ្ចឹងបញ្ហាជាច្រើននៅកើតឡើងទៅតាមក្រោយផងដែរនៅពេលដែលយើងចូលហ៊ុនដោយមិនមានការហៅថាសិក្សាច្បាស់លាស់និងការរៀបចំរចនាសម្ព័ន្ធច្បាស់លាស់ហ្នឹងគឺអាចធ្វើឲ្យដំណើរនៃការវិវត្តរបស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនតែងតែមានឧបសគ្គនិងបញ្ហាជាច្រើនផងដែរហើយទី3ទី6ចាការ impact investor ចាអ្នក investor silent ពេលខ្លះចាគាត់ដែលអ្នកមានលុយច្រើនចាគាត់វិនិយោគគាត់អត់ចង់លូកលាន់ចាហ្នឹងក៏វាជាកត្តាមួយល្អដែរក៏យើងអាចចាប់ដៃជាមួយគាត់ដែរគាត់បកគលការងារយើងទាំងអស់គាត់មិនលូកលាត់គាត់ដឹងតែដល់ខែមើលតែបញ្ជីស្នាមចំណេញខាតប្រមាណគឺគាត់អត់លូកលាន់ការងារហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងក៏ជាកត្តាមួយដែលល្អដែលយើងអាចពិចារណាក្នុងការវិនិយោគជាមួយពួកគាត់ផងដែរចាទី7គឺការទទួលបានកម្ចីពីធនាគារឬមីក្រូហិរញ្ញវត្ថុឬក៏ញាតិមិត្តបងប្អូនចាកម្ចីពីធនាគារពីមីក្រូហិរញ្ញវត្ថុនេះក៏ជាកត្តាសំខាន់ដែរគឺយើងអាចរកស៊ីដើម្បីពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មបានយើងកុំគិតថាអ្នកខ្លះគាត់ថាគាត់ចេះរកស៊ីមកមិនដែលខ្ចីធនាគារទេចាគាត់ប្រើតែលុយគាត់សុទ្ធថានេះអាជីវកម្មយើងបើចង់រកស៊ីពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មលឿនគួរតែការប្រើប្រាស់ធនាគារឬមីក្រូហិរញ្ញវត្ថុចាប៉ុន្តែក៏យើងមើលដែរថាមិនមែនចេះតែខ្ចីទេចាហើយធនាគារក៏មិនមែនចេះតែឲ្យយើងខ្ចីដែរចាអញ្ចឹងក៏យើងត្រូវការកត់ត្រាបញ្ជីស្នាមរបស់យើងឲ្យបានច្បាស់ជាក់លាក់ផងដែរចាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងការកត់ត្រាបញ្ជីស្នាមច្បាស់លាស់គឺយើងខ្ចីលុយធនាគារមកគឺគេឲ្យការប្រាក់ទាបចាការប្រាក់ទាបគឺយើងអាចយកមកអភិវឌ្ឍក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងបានបើបញ្ជីស្នាមយើងមិនច្បាស់លាស់ការដែលទៅទួលខ្ចីពីធនាគារគឺឲ្យយើងតិចហើយការប្រាក់ថ្លៃទៀតតែការប្រាក់ថ្លៃគឺយើងពិបាកក្នុងការពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មរបស់យើងដូចថាប្រាក់ចំណេញយើងក៏ដឹងហើយថារកស៊ីនៅស្រុកខ្មែរបច្ចុប្បន្នចំណេញគឺតិចមែនតែនតែម្ដងអញ្ចឹងបើយើងមិនចេះការគ្រប់គ្រងអាថ្លៃដើមយើងនេះគឺពិបាកក្នុងការសងទៅធនាគារវិញហើយចាទី8ចាចំពោះការទទួលសហការជាមួយនឹង venture capital ដោយ VC មិញលោកស្រីរតនាបានមានប្រសាសន៍នេះជាការមួយដែលល្អដែរ venture capital នេះនៅពេលដែលគាត់ចូលមកវិនិយោគគាត់វិនិយោគមិនយូរទេចាខាង VC នេះឃើញថាការវិនិយោគរបស់គាត់អត់យូរអង្វែងជាមួយយើងទេគាត់ដាក់គឺគាត់មានឱកាសដូចថាគាត់ឃើញថាក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងកំពុងមានបញ្ហាយើងកំពុងតែត្រូវការលុយអញ្ចឹងគាត់អាចចូលខ្លួនមកជួយរៀបចំនៅក្នុងក្រុមហ៊ុនរបស់យើងឲ្យដំណើរការឲ្យជោគជ័យហើយគាត់ដាក់ទុនចូលជាមួយយើងអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលគាត់ដាក់ទុនហើយគាត់មកជួយរៀបចំក្នុងក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងឲ្យដំណើរការជោគជ័យហើយអញ្ចឹងគាត់ក្នុងរយៈពេល5ឆ្នាំឬ7ឆ្នាំគឺគាត់ត្រូវដកទុននឹងចេញវិញហើយអញ្ចឹងយើងឲ្យយើងដំណើរការដោយខ្លួនឯងចំពោះ VC នេះក៏វាជាកត្តាមួយល្អបើសិនជាយើងអាចសហការជាមួយពួកគាត់បាននៅពេលដែលយើងនៅមានអាជីវកម្មយើងដែលមានបញ្ហាចាហើយចំពោះចាទី9គឺការបោះបំណុលនេះចាបោះបានបំណុលចាបោះបានបំណុលគឺមានភាពស្មុគស្មាញច្រើនចាបោះបានបំណុលហើយនឹងបោះបានភាគហ៊ុនអានេះតើតែក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលធំ ចាតើតែក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលធំដែលយើងមានប្រាក់ចំណេញហើយចាមានប្រាក់ចំណេញហើយ business យ៉ាងតិចក៏3ឆ្នាំឡើងលើហើយមានការកត់ត្រាបញ្ជីស្នាមច្បាស់លាស់បង់ពន្ធត្រឹមត្រូវចាបានយើងអាចបោះប័ណ្ណបំណុលឬក៏បោះប័ណ្ណភាគហ៊ុនលក់ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅកត្តាទាំងអស់នេះអាចបងប្អូនទាំងអស់មើលតើអាជីវកម្មយើងស្ថិតនៅក្នុងអាជីវកម្មបញ្ហាមួយណាតម្រូវការ capital មួយណាគឺយើងអាចធ្វើការសិក្សាបានហើយអ្វីដែលសំខាន់ចុងក្រោយនេះនាងខ្ញុំចង់ប្រាំថាដើម្បីទទួលបាននៅហិរញ្ញវត្ថុជំនួយឥតសំដងក៏ដោយការវិនិយោគក៏ដោយអ្វីក៏ដោយកម្ចីក៏ដោយក៏ដាច់ខាតទី1គឺយើងត្រូវតែមានភាពស្មោះត្រង់ទី2បញ្ជីស្នាមហិរញ្ញវត្ថុគឺត្រូវតែច្បាស់លាស់ចាបើមិនច្បាស់លាស់គឺយើងពិបាកក្នុងការរកហិរញ្ញវត្ថុមកពង្រីកក្រុមហ៊ុនចាទី3គឺក្រុមហ៊ុនគឺត្រូវតែមាន system ឲ្យច្បាស់លាស់រចនាសម្ព័ន្ធគ្រប់គ្រងឲ្យច្បាស់លាស់ចាទី4គឺក្រុមហ៊ុនត្រូវតែមានស្តង់ដារចាស្តង់ដារឲ្យច្បាស់លាស់ផងដែរអញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងមានទាំង4អស់ហ្នឹងហើយអាជីវកម្មយើងនឹងពង្រីកបានលឿនហើយមាននិរន្តរភាពផងដែរចាបើសិនជាយើងមិនមាន4ហ្នឹងទេអាជីវកម្មយើងពេលខ្លះដែលមានលុយចេះតែពង្រីកដែលយើងមិនមានគោលហៅថាមូលដ្ឋានគ្រឹះច្បាស់លាស់ក៏វាអាចជួបនឹងហានិភ័យទៅថ្ងៃអនាគតនឹងផងដែរចាសូមអរគុណច្រើន
នាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអរគុណលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាសម្រាប់ការចែករំលែកបទពិសោធន៍ដ៏មានតម្លៃនាងខ្ញុំទទួលបានសំណួរចំនួន2ពីអ្នកដែលចូលរួមតាមប្រព័ន្ធអនឡាញនាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអនុញ្ញាតជម្រាបជូននៅសំណួរទី1តើយើងត្រូវធ្វើដូចម្តេចដើម្បីស្នើសុំជំនួយបច្ចេកទេសសំណួរទី2គាត់គឺជាសមាជិកថ្មីរបស់ CWEA គាត់មានសំណួរពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងបច្ចេកទេសលើមន្ទីរពិសោធន៍ក្រៅប្រទេសដើម្បីទទួលបានការទទួលស្គាល់គុណភាពលើផលិតផលដូច្នេះសំណួររបស់គាត់ចង់សួរថាតើឡាបូប្រទេសណាខ្លះដែលយើងអាចតាក់ទងបានលើផលិតផលសុខភាពសូមអរគុណ
ចាចំពោះជំនួយបច្ចេកទេសទី1មិញភ្លេចលើក business ត្រូវតែមានការចុះបញ្ជីច្បាស់លាស់ទៅតាមក្រសួងស្ថាប័នដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធចាអញ្ចឹងបើយើងជាអ្នកផលិតចំណីអាហារយើងចុះបញ្ជីនៅក្រសួងឧស្សាហកម្មក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មបើពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងរឿងថ្នាំពេទ្យចាអ្វីដែលប៉ះពាល់ដល់សុខភាពគឺត្រូវតែចុះបញ្ជីនៅក្រសួងសុខាភិបាលហើយក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មផងដែរអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងចុះបញ្ជីបានច្បាស់លាស់ទៅតាមក្រសួងស្ថាប័នដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធហៅថាកូនមានខណ្ឌស្លាចាកូនមានខណ្ឌស្លាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលមានជំនួយអ្វីផ្សេងនោះចាជំនួយទាំងថ្នាក់ជាតិទាំងអន្តរជាតិបើថ្នាក់អន្តរជាតិគេមកគេអត់រកយើង direct ទេគេចូលក្រសួងចាក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធថាឥឡូវគេមានគម្រោងនេះសម្រាប់ជួយទៅដល់ SME លើវិស័យណាមួយអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងចុះបញ្ជីច្បាស់លាស់នៅក្នុងក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធក្រសួងគឺគាត់ត្រូវតែជ្រើសរើសនៅក្រុមហ៊ុនទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងគាត់នឹងធ្វើការផ្សព្វផ្សាយឲ្យយើងដឹងថាអូឥឡូវគេមានជំនួយទៅលើបច្ចេកទេសផ្នែកអីអញ្ចឹងបើអ្នកណាចាប់អារម្មណ៍អាចចុះឈ្មោះចាទទួលបាននៅការបច្ចេកទេសហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងពីមុនជាង10ឆ្នាំមុនមើលក្រុមហ៊ុនលីទទួលបានជំនួយបច្ចេកវិទ្យាតាំងពី2005ចា2005មកដល់ពេលនេះគឺ10ជាងឆ្នាំហើយអញ្ចឹងចំនួនហ្នឹងនៅពេលដែលខាង APO ចាគាត់មកជួយខាងស្តង់ដា 5S Kaizen ចូលតាមក្រសួងឧស្សាហកម្មនោះក្រសួងឧស្សាហកម្មបានផ្សព្វផ្សាយទៅដល់សមាជិកដែលបានចុះបញ្ជីអញ្ចឹងឃើញថាក្រុមហ៊ុនដតីគឺគាត់មិនទទួលយកនៅការអនុវត្តហ្នឹងដោយគាត់គិតថាគេមកលួចបច្ចេកទេសពីគាត់គេមកហៅថាប្រងដូចថាស្វែងយល់អ្វីដែលមិនល្អដែលថានេះច្រើនណាគឺគាត់អត់បើកចំហហ្មងប៉ុន្តែចំពោះក្រុមហ៊ុនលីគឺយើងបើកចំហគឺយើងទទួលដោយសារយើងគិតថានៅជំនាន់នោះយើងនៅក្មេងស្អីក៏មិនដឹងតែអត់ចេះទាំងអស់ការ start up business របស់ខ្ញុំគឺសឹងតែ0ទាំងអស់នៅពេលដែលយើងបង្កើតក្រុមហ៊ុន Lily Food នេះឡើងសឹងតែ0ទាំងអស់តែម្ដងអញ្ចឹងយើងគិតថាយើងនៅខ្វះខាតចំណុចជាច្រើនអញ្ចឹងត្រូវការទទួល ការបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលនិងបច្ចេកទេសជាច្រើននៅពេលដែលក្រុមហ៊ុន Lily អនុវត្តទៅគឺទទួលបានជោគជ័យនៅពេលនោះគឺយើងបានឡើង share ថាយើងអនុវត្តស្តង់ដារ 5S Kaizen តើយើងចំណេញយ៉ាងម៉េចចាអនុវត្តនៅហៅថា green industry ហ្នឹងយើងចំណេញយ៉ាងម៉េចចំណេញបានប្រមាណគិតជាតួលេខគិតជាលុយចេញតែម្ដងចានៅពេលដែលយើងអនុវត្តស្តង់ដារ green industry ហ្នឹងវាបានជាប្រយោលហើយបានជាចំណេញជាទឹកប្រាក់ហើយកាត់បន្ថយថ្លៃដើមគឺយើងមានតួលេខកត់ត្រាច្បាស់លាស់ចេញមកបង្ហាញទៅដល់បងប្អូនបានម្នាក់ចង់apply ទទួលការប្រពដានេះផងដែរចាហើយមួយទៀតចំពោះមិញសំណួរទី2អីគេ
តកតងជាមួយនឹងបច្ចេកទេសគុណភាពផលិតផលដើម្បីទទួលបានអញ្ចឹង
ឡាបូក៏វាអាស្រ័យដែលយើងបើយើងចង់បានការតេស្តផលិតផលអាចទៅប្រទេសវៀតណាមក៏បានប្រទេសថៃក៏បានប្រទេសសិង្ហបុរីក៏បានអាស្រ័យទៅលើតើយើងចង់បានអ្វីចាយើងចង់បានឆែកអ្វីនៅក្នុងនោះប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងក៏មានឡាបូក្នុងការត្រួតពិនិត្យដែរប៉ុន្តែក៏ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងនៅមានកម្រិតនៅឡើយលោកជំទាវចាឡាបូដែលយើងចង់បានឆែកអ្វីដែលnutrition នៅក្នុងហ្នឹងឬក៏ស្អីនៃនេះហ្នឹងវាមានច្រើននៅក្នុងហ្នឹងណាចាអញ្ចឹងប្រទេសយើងនៅឡាបូនៅមានកម្រិតអញ្ចឹងពេលខ្លះយើងឆែកបានតែមួយកម្រិតខ្លះទេអញ្ចឹងអាស្រ័យទៅលើតើ buyer យើងគាត់ត្រូវការស្អីគេខ្លះឆែកស្អីគេខ្លះនៅក្នុងផលិតផលរបស់យើងអញ្ចឹងយើងអាចទៅមើលដូចផលិតផលនំលីលីយើងនាំចេញទៅ13ប្រទេសគឺយើងឆែកឡាបូពីប្រទេសថៃចាប្រទេសថៃអ្វីដែលគេចង់បានគឺយើងបញ្ជូនទៅប្រទេសថៃហ្នឹងឆែកចា
សូមអរគុណនាងខ្ញុំទទួលបានសំណួរមួយបន្ថែមទៀតចំពោះលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាសំណួរសួរថាតើលោកជំទាវបានជួបប្រទះនៅបញ្ហាប្រឈមអ្វីខ្លះក្នុងការប្រកបអាជីវកម្មហើយលោកជំទាវអាចផ្ដល់ជាអនុសាសន៍ណែនាំដល់អាជីវកម្មនៅប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដូចម្តេចខ្លះសូមអរគុណ
ចាចំពោះរឿងបញ្ហាគឺវាបញ្ហាដែលជួបប្រទះហ្នឹងគឺច្រើនខ្លាំងមែនតែម្ដងចាប៉ុន្តែដោយសារយើងតែងតែចូលរួមចាវគ្គបណ្ដុះបណ្ដាលទទួលព័ត៌មានពីស្ថាប័នក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធចាផ្សេងនេះហើយដែលអាចជួយដោះនៅរាល់បញ្ហារបស់យើងហ្នឹងចាដូចពីដំបូងអញ្ចឹងដែលយើងបង្កើតឡើងបច្ចេកទេសក៏យើងមិនចេះទីផ្សារក៏ពិបាកនឹងលក់ចែកចាយការគ្រប់គ្រងក៏នៅមានកម្រិតចាហិរញ្ញវត្ថុក៏ខ្វះទៀតអញ្ចឹងខ្វះទាំងអស់ចាអញ្ចឹងតើយើងធ្វើម៉េចអាហ្នឹងហើយដែលយើងត្រូវការចុះបញ្ជីហ្នឹងហើយយើងមកចូលរួមជាសមាជិកសមាគមឲ្យបានច្រើនចាដើម្បីយើងទទួលបាននៅរាល់បញ្ហាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងជួបឧបសគ្គបញ្ហាអ្វីដែលយើងមិនអាចដោះបានខ្លួនឯងគឺយើងត្រូវតែរកសមាគមឲ្យជួយឬក៏ក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធគាត់ជួយអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាបច្ចុប្បន្នក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធជាពិសេសរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលហើយក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធសមាគមហ្នឹងគឺជួយជ្រោមជ្រែងខ្លាំងមែនទែនទៅលើការដោះស្រាយរាល់បញ្ហារបស់សមាជិករបស់ SME ចាហើយហិរញ្ញវត្ថុក៏អញ្ចឹងដែរគឺយើងនៅពេលដែលយើងធ្វើការលក់ដូរកត់ត្រាច្បាស់លាស់ក៏យើងអាចទៅខ្ចីលុយធនាគារបានងាយស្រួលចាខ្វះអីគឺយើងទៅរកតាមក្រសួងដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធហ្នឹងឲ្យជួយដោះស្រាយយើងចា
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាដោយសារពេលវេលាមានកំណត់ខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ឈប់សំណួរត្រឹមនេះនិងសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោក
ចាសូមអរគុណ
ចាជាកិច្ចបន្ទាប់នាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោក Joshua Jones នាយកគ្រប់គ្រងនៃក្រុមហ៊ុន Three Corner Coffee Co Ltd អញ្ជើញចែករំលែកបទពិសោធន៍ស្ដីអំពីការវិនិយោគ
បាទសូមជម្រាបសួរលោកជំទាវលោកអាដាមភ្ញៀវកិត្តិយសផ្សេងដែលនៅបានចូលរួមផ្ទាល់ហើយនឹងអនឡាញសូមអធិស្ឋានខ្ញុំនឹងបន្តប្រើភាសាអង់គ្លេសដោយសារភាសាចិត្តហើយផាអាចច្បាស់ជាង So my name is Joshua Jones. I am the owner of Three Corner Coffee Roaster, and all the information that has been given here today from Loksrai and Lokdeo have been very on point and have been inclusive of the businesses and what you need to do to be able to gain investment. For me, it's a little bit different. I was able to get a hold of some angel investors come 2019 for my company to be able to move forward and actually ending up surviving COVID. So in regards to my situation, it's a little bit different. We were not able to go through the proper processes. We ended up meeting with some key people that were able to help us out and give us the funds that we needed to be able to move forward. So in many cases with angel investors like this is going to be the situation for many of you. What can I say? For us as a team and as a company, what is important is vision. Your vision for the future, your vision for your company is going to be a key in attracting people to you to be your investors, to be your team members, and to have them invest in you. Having a strong vision, having a plan for the future, and seeing the type of change that you are going to have on the ecosystem around you and on businesses and industries in the country is going to be of utmost importance. For me, the vision and impact of who we are going to be impacting the suppliers that we work with, the indigenous farmers, my staff, as well as my customers, and how do we impact them positively. For us, we source from indigenous farmers directly, giving them proper payment for their green coffees. With our staff, we treat them properly according to labor law and adding extra incentives for OT and these types of things. And customers, of course, giving them the best available products to be able to have at their disposal for their coffee brewing. These things are important for the impact that we are going to have. So I don't have a lot to say on the details of how to do this, but I do have something to say on the clarity that needs to happen. So when you are approached by investors or when you are approached by people who want to be a part of your business, one of the key important things is not only for them to know you, but for you to know them. Because they are going to be attached to you. They are going to be a part of your family, essentially. And so knowing who they are and what they are about is a very, very important thing because they are going to be the ones taking you forward. If they do not believe in your vision and if you do not believe in theirs, then there is a mismatch and this will cause problems later in the future. The work is high. It's a lot of work to be able to go through a proper agreement, but also having a highly clear agreement between the two of you is going to be very, very necessary. Understanding what it is that needs to happen from point A to point B and any exceptions that might occur. Clear communication alongside of a clear agreement is very, very important for especially small businesses that might be seeking investment and knowing how it is that you are going to move forward. Beyond this, all I know is that for companies that are here in Cambodia, look to impact those around you. To me, I see the most opportunity with impact investors. I see the most opportunity working with people that are conscientious about the environment and conscientious about the society in which they work. So having an understanding of your business and having an understanding of your impacts, being passionate about these things, to me, represent the key to being able to attract investors as an SME or a small business. And that is pretty much all that I have. It is very short and concise, but I believe we just went through all the details necessary. So I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joshua, for your very invaluable sharing. If you have any question, please raise.
But the chief of Tom some crop look to the recommend right like some the cam some crop of nhà look to say thằng nhầm một nạp hiệp na ngàyนี้ได้ban look to showroom chia thập đấy hay khung ទស្សនៈខ្ញុំផ្ទាល់ដែរក៏សូមជម្រាបថាដែលបានលោកអង្គការជំទាវអង្គការកៅមុំលោកបានចែករំលែកនៅចំណេះដឹងចំណេះធ្វើដ៏មានតម្លៃជូន អង្គសខាសាលាទាំងមូលហើយខ្ញុំមុននឹងខ្ញុំសួរសំណួរលោកជំទាវក៏ខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបថាក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មគឺតែងតែបំពេញតួនាទីយ៉ាងសកម្មក្នុងការសម្របសម្រួលដើម្បីឲ្យអាជីវករយើងអ្នកផលិតករយើងនេះអាចរកស៊ីទទួលទានបានហើយក៏ដូចជាយើងបានរៀបចំអំពីជំនួបពាណិជ្ជកម្មយើងបានរៀបចំអំពីការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរហៅថាបច្ចេកវិទ្យាបច្ចេកទេសចំពោះដើម្បីជារួមចំណែកក្នុងការសម្របសម្រួលដល់បងប្អូនជាអ្នករកស៊ីទទួលទាននេះបាទហើយនៅតែបន្តជានិច្ចហើយក្រៅពីលោកជំទាវកែមុំក៏យើងសូមមេត្តាអញ្ជើញទៅក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មក្រៅពីនាយកដ្ឋានឌីកូក៏យើងមាននាយកដ្ឋានដទៃទៀតដែលអាចជួយចែករំលែកក៏អាចធ្វើឲ្យបងប្អូនអាចជួបនៅជំនួបពាណិជ្ជករផ្សេងទាំងជាតិទាំងអន្តរជាតិបាទហើយទន្ទឹមនេះដែរក៏ខ្ញុំសូមជូនជាមតិខ្លះដោយសារតែខ្ញុំផ្ទាល់នោះខ្ញុំបានអញ្ជើញទៅរោងចក្រលោកជំទាវដែរកាលពីឆ្នាំ2017ខ្ញុំបំពេញភារកិច្ចជានាយករងនៅមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលអាស៊ានជប៉ុនបាទខ្ញុំជឿថាមានអ្នកស្គាល់ហើយបាទប៉ុន្តែអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំចាក់អារម្មណ៍នោះគឺថាបងប្អូនមេត្តាយ៉ាងម៉េចក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មគឺថាមិនមែនជាដៃគូទេយើងខ្ញុំគឺជាអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលជូនណាយើងមិនមែនជា partner ទេបាទអញ្ចឹងមេត្តាធ្វើម៉េចឲ្យមានហៅថា self starter self initiative បានន័យថាយើងត្រូវ invest ខ្លួនឯងយើងត្រូវចាប់ផ្ដើមយើងត្រូវគិតអំពីហៅថា standard បាទ certification មិនមែនមានន័យថាផលិតផលប្រេងកាឡាមួយយើងទៅសេថាមានជាតិគីមីទៅសេដៃយ៉ាងទេយើងមិនមែនថាមានគុណភាពខ្ពស់ទេយើងត្រូវមាន ISO មាន certification ណាដើម្បីបញ្ជាក់ថាផលិតផលយើងនេះអាចប្រកួតប្រជែងអាចនាំចេញបានសូមមេត្តាគិតរឿងនេះសំខាន់ណាស់ពីព្រោះបើអត់មានអានឹងទេគេអត់អាចជឿយើងទេបាទអញ្ចឹងហើយខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាមេត្តាជួយក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មនៅតែរីករាយនៅតែបន្តជានិច្ចចំពោះការងារសម្របសម្រួលជូនបាទទាំងឌីកូទាំងនាយកដ្ឋានផ្សេងបាទហើយខ្ញុំក៏សូមកោតសរសើរលោកជំទាវកែមុំដែលលោកជំទាវបានជោគជ័យក្នុងការរកស៊ីអាជីវកម្មនេះហើយនាំចេញដល់13ប្រទេសអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំក៏សូមសំណួរមួយដល់លោកជំទាវចែកមេត្តាតើលោកជំទាវយក standard ISO ឬ certificate ទៅលើវិញ្ញាបនបត្រសុខភាពនៃនំស្រួយពី standard ISO ឬក៏យ៉ាងណាមួយបាទសូមលោកជំទាវអាចចែកលេខបន្តិចទៀតហើយទី2ដើម្បីយើងបានវិញ្ញាបនបត្រហ្នឹងតែយើងគួរធ្វើម៉េចដើម្បីឲ្យបងប្អូនយើងមួយចំនួនដែលលោកអាចគិតថាទៅគិតអានឹងមុនគេបាទផលិតឲ្យគិតនឹងមុនគេបាននាំចេញបានអញ្ចឹងលោកជំទាវអាចចែកលេខតើ13ប្រទេសលោកជំទាវប្រើវិញ្ញាបនបត្រមួយណាក្នុងការទទួលស្គាល់អំពីគុណភាពដែលมันមានប៉ះពាល់ដល់សុខភាពដល់អ្នកប្រើប្រាស់បាទសូមអរគុណ
ចាសូមអរគុណច្រើនអញ្ចឹងចំពោះក្រុមហ៊ុនលីលីគឺយើងនាំចេញទៅចំនួន13ប្រទេសរួចទៅហើយអញ្ចឹងមិនមែនថាក្រុមហ៊ុនលីលីយើង standard HACCP ISO halal គឺយើងមានហើយប្រចាំក្រុមហ៊ុនប៉ុន្តែមិនមែនថាមានទាំង3ហ្នឹងអាចនាំចេញទៅគ្រប់ប្រទេសបានទេអត់ទេប្រទេសមួយគឺត្រូវការ standard មួយប្រទេសមួយត្រូវការ standard មួយគឺច្រើនមែនតើដូចទៅអាមេរិកគឺគេត្រូវការ FBA ទៀតទៅកូរ៉េគេត្រូវការ KFBA ចានាំទៅវៀតណាមនៅទៅវៀតណាមចិនថៃអីត្រូវការបំពេញនៅ standard របស់គេទៀតអញ្ចឹងយើងធ្វើម៉េចត្រូវតែបំពេញហើយបើយកទៅអូស្ត្រាលីហើយ New Zealand អញ្ចឹងជាក្រុមហ៊ុនមួយដែលយើងធ្វើ OEM ឲ្យគេចាជាក្រុមហ៊ុន Pepsi ជាក្រុមហ៊ុនធំលើពិភពលោកអញ្ចឹងអ្វីដែលក្រុមហ៊ុន Lily ផលិតឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុន Pepsi បានមិនមែនជាធម្មតាជាក្រុមហ៊ុនមួយស្តង់ដារខ្លាំងមែនទែនបានអាចផលិតឲ្យក្រុមហ៊ុន Pepsi ដែលជាធំក្រុមហ៊ុនធំអញ្ចឹងក្រុមហ៊ុន Pepsi ស្តង់ដារដែលយើងមានហ្នឹងគឺអត់នេះទេគេអត់ទទួលស្គាល់ទេត្រូវតែអនុវត្ត AIB ចា BRC ស្តង់ដារ AIB និង BRC នេះខ្លាំងជាងស្តង់ដារ ISO ទៅទៀតចាអញ្ចឹងទើបយើងអាចផ្គត់ផ្គង់ផលិតផលហ្នឹងទៅនាំចេញទៅឲ្យគេបានចាអញ្ចឹងគឺស្តង់ដារច្រើនមែនតើមិនដែរក្រុមហ៊ុន Lily ទោះជាយ៉ាងណាក៏ដោយដែលថាយើងមានមូលដ្ឋានគ្រឹះតាំងពីយើងអនុវត្ត 5S Kaizen គឺជាក្រុមស្តង់ដារគោលចាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងបានអនុវត្តអា 5S Kaizen ជាស្តង់ដារគោលនឹងហើយស្តង់ដារផ្សេងគឺយើងងាយស្រួលក្នុងការអនុវត្តអញ្ចឹងបើយើងមិនមានអាស្តង់ដារ 5S និង Kaizen ទេអាស្តង់ដារលើរៀងតឹងបន្តិចពិបាកអាស្តង់ដារគោលនោះគឺសំខាន់ចាដែលត្រូវការអនុវត្តផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអត្តចរិតរបស់បុគ្គលិកកម្មករការធ្វើការងារដូចថាឥឡូវបុគ្គលិកកម្មករយើងរត់រងហ្នឹងគាត់ធ្វើអីយកអីវ៉ាន់អីយកណាទុកចោលហ្នឹងនំជ្រុះអីវ៉ាន់ជ្រុះនៅដីអីគាត់ដើរជន់ដើរម្លងអីចឹងអត់ខ្វាយអត់ខ្វល់ទេកន្លែងប្រើហើយអត់ជូតអត់អីសម្អាតអីទេចាអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងអនុវត្ត 5S Kaizen ជាស្តង់ដារគោលផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអត្តចរិតរបស់គាត់ណែឃើញអីត្រូវតែរើសចេញយករបស់អីមកប្រើហើយត្រូវតែយកទៅដាក់កន្លែងហ្នឹងវិញអីវ៉ាន់ស្អីគឺត្រូវតែរៀបឲ្យមានស្តង់ដារអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលយើងត្រូវចង់ទៅយកអីមួយយើងទៅដល់គឺយើងយកមកបានភ្លាមហើយបើយើងមិនរៀបឲ្យវាចេញស្តង់ដារនៅពេលដូចថាយើងត្រូវការរកអីដូចថាឥឡូវតែសោមួលខ្ចៅខ្យងអីចឹងយើងដាក់មួយកេះធំពេលត្រូវការសោលេខប្រមាណហ្នឹងកាយរើចុះរើឡើងពេលខ្លះក៏រកឃើញខាតពេលវេលាពេលខ្លះបាត់អត់ដឹងបាត់ទៀតហើយអញ្ចឹងដល់អញ្ចឹងរកអត់ឃើញអាការងារយើងវាត្រូវស្ទះបាត់ចាអញ្ចឹងបើយើងរៀបទៅតាមຂ្នាតវាលេខ10លេខ9លេខ8លេខ7អីចឹងរៀបតាមហ្នឹងយើងទៅដល់យើងមើលពីចម្ងាយអូខ្ញុំត្រូវការសោលេខ10ទៅដល់យើងដកយកមកប្រើបានភ្លាមអញ្ចឹងចំណេញពេលវេលាហ្នឹងហើយទុកដាក់ឲ្យមានរបៀបរៀបរយនៅពេលដែលបាត់អ្នកណាយកបាត់ហើយសោលេខ10ត្រូវទៅរកមកវិញមកតពុកវិញចាហ្នឹងដែលថាធ្វើការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអេរិយាបថរបស់បុគ្គលិកកម្មករនឹងចំណាយពេលយូរឆ្នាំចាមិនមែនថាអនុវត្តភ្លាមគាត់បដូរបានភ្លាមទេធ្វើហើយអញ្ចឹងសម្អាតបានស្អាតមួយផ្លែតទៅ2 3ថ្ងៃក្រោយមកទៀតតស្រែកថាឲ្យទៅបដោះបដាលទៅស្អាតបានផ្លែតទៅតែភ្លេចខ្លួនទៅមកក៏ក្រិចទៀតអីវ៉ាន់ញ៉ៃទៀតទៅអញ្ចឹងអាការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរហ្នឹងគឺពិបាកប៉ុន្តែយើងនៅតែព្យាយាមចារយៈពេល 4-5 ឆ្នាំរមមតែរៀបរយទាំងអស់ចាសូមអរគុណ
សូមគោរពអរគុណលោកជំទាវអុកញ៉ាក្រុមការងារបានទទួលសំណួរមួយបន្ថែមសម្រាប់លោកស្រីរតនា Dear Mrs. Ratana, we got a question for you. Like, could you please share with the audience how to contact or approach VC? Thank you.
Well, I mean, you have details, like on their website. First thing, like they can be contacted. But of course, if you're based in Cambodia and you want to contact them, the best is also to try, to reach out to them. Maybe maybe we can ask, like to Bora, who's here, what is the best way? One recommendation is simply. People in Cambodia are quite accessible, okay? So don't be shy. If you have good things to propose, try to contact them simply by email or trying to have a, or... Yeah, do you want to answer, Bora, for that? Yeah, okay, he will answer later. So yes, my recommendation simply is to do it, like the normal way, or through, like a network is also working well. If you can get access to them through different channel like business network or someone that know them. Simply.
Thank you very much.
They're normal people, so
Thank you.
Don't be afraid.
សម្រាប់របៀបវិរៈបន្ទាប់គឺជាកិច្ចពិភាក្សាលើប្រធានបទការស្វែងរកហិរញ្ញប្បទានប្រកបដោយជោគជ័យរបស់សហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមដែលរួមមានលោកជាឡៃជាប្រធាននាយកដ្ឋានសហប្រតិបត្តិការអន្តរជាតិនៃក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មជាអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលនិងវាគ្មិនចំនួន3រូបរួមមានលោកកឹមបូរ៉ាដៃគូនៃក្រុមហ៊ុន Mekong Strategic Partners លោក Terry T នាយកប្រតិបត្តិនៃក្រុមហ៊ុន Negotia Capital និងលោកស្រីធានលីដៃគូគ្រប់គ្រងនៃក្រុមហ៊ុន Severe Capital សូមគោរពអញ្ជើញឡើងលើវេទិកា
Yeah, you can either hold the microphone right now or maybe after that. Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to a panel discussion. My name is Chia Lai Chia, as introduced by our MC. I'm the moderator for this session. And as you know, accessing to finance for the e-commerce business in Cambodia is very new topic, and it requires more discussion and also more source of information. In today's workshop, we have heard a comprehensive presentation from Bong Ratana for the VC ecosystems and the main actor involved in the ecosystem. And we also had the opportunity to hear the experience sharing from Oknya Cao Mom from the Lily food industry, and also Joe from the Three Corner Coffee. So now it's turn to our panel discussion, which we have opportunity to talk to a practical point of view from VC, angel investor, and also expert in the field. So it's great pleasure to have the three panelists with me this morning. Instead of reading their biography, I would like to, invite them to introduce themselves. So maybe start from Ms. Tien Ly, lady first. So please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Tien Ly. I run a company called Siva Capital. I've lived in Cambodia for 9 years, but I am Khmer, and I'm sorry that I don't speak Khmer very well. My company does advisory to large corporates, so I help companies with strategy advisory and corporate finance advisory. Before coming to Cambodia, I worked in investment banking for a global bank called Citigroup, and then helped build up a private equity company there. And it's very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tien Ly, for your introduction and your company. So next is Bora or Chiri, you can go first. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation. For me to be here, my name is Bora. I am a partner at Mekong Strategic Partner, and we, as Bong Ratana mentioned, we are a very active venture capital firm in Cambodia. So you might know a few of our companies that we invest in. Nyamapai Boon. So we invest very early stage when they used to have 30 drivers, and now they have about 3,000. So we've seen quite a big growth in the company. We also invest in other companies like Morakat, Banchi. We've been involved with PaiPay. In my capacity as, amongst maybe around 10 other companies, which I doubt most people have heard of. In my capacity as an angel investor, I've also done investments into Boost, which is a fintech company, and Baramai Music, which you guys might know. Have people heard of Vanda, the musician? That's the company that helps his career launch. So happy to share my experience specifically in all of those investments as well. I know that Bong Ratana has provided some really practical bullet points, but it might help to share my experience on the specific stuff of what happened. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borakam. So, Mr. Thierry, please.
Good morning. My name is Thierry Théa. So I was born in France. I'm Khmer from France, and I came to Cambodia about 5 years ago in 2017. I started my career in Singapore, China, the Philippines. I was working for a multinational company called Airbus. It's a French company manufacturing airplanes, helicopters, satellites. and defense system. So after 10 years working for them, I left the group and I started my own investment company in Singapore. And I wanted to invest in Cambodia, so I came to Cambodia. My wife started a rice mill, and now she's one of the largest rice exporter. And so I had to do something on my own. And I started to look at investment in Cambodia. We invested in agriculture first, then education, and then recently we moved into technology, innovation, and impact investment. So I am like Bora, angel investor, and I am part of some angel investor network, like Kane, that Bong Ratana mentioned earlier, also part of the CIC, and we are working with Young Entrepreneur Association, with also some other syndicate. So being angel entrepreneurs, angel investors and entrepreneurs, we have to work with networks. So I am part of some syndicate in the region, in Singapore, in France, and in Cambodia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thierry. I think we have heard, the background and the expertise that they have in VC ecosystem, and it's a good opportunity for our representative of the SME participating here physically and virtually, to interact with, our panelists. But before I start the panel discussion, let me inform you that, as VC ecosystem is quite new to Cambodian entrepreneurs and businessmen. Let me, allow me to go with a few questions first, and then perhaps I will open the floor for the interaction between, the audience and panelists, because I just want to make sure that, we are not discussing among ourselves, but we will talk to each other for the whole discussion. So let me start, because this morning I listened carefully to the presentation by Bong Ratana regarding the VC ecosystem and also the experience sharing. Just want to know your reflection. What do you think about the fundraising process and environment in for Cambodian SME? Because Cambodian SME might be doubtful that, how they go for this funding request or due diligence or other requirement from VC or angel investor, or maybe the expert can advise them, how to do with the process. So start with Mr. Bora.
Thank you. So a lot has been said already. I'll just focus on maybe 2 points. One is that, like Oknya Kaumom mentioned, sometimes the fundraising process is a long period of time. It took her 3 years to do. So first and foremost, the process is not a simple pitch and you go through step 1, A, B, C, D, E, F. It is a relationship building exercise where you have to get to know the person on both sides, and sometimes the VC is not ready, sometimes the company is not ready. But I would say that it is a long process, so even if the environment today is challenging, that doesn't mean that next year things won't change. And when you approach the fundraising process as a relationship building, there's a lot of room to grow between the investors and investees. You could be honest, you could build trust over time, you could communicate, you could point out things that are not going right and things that are going right. You could educate the investors. So, don't think of it as, oh, I have to have a meeting with them to get to the next meeting. Everything is a relationship building exercise. What that also means is that it's never too early to approach an investor or a partner, right? Because you never know when you're going to need them. You never know when things don't work out well. Which is also another advice that Bong Ratana mentioned, is that you want to raise money when you want it, not when you need it. Because I think one of the funny saying about bankers and investors is that we never give you the umbrella when it's raining, right? we never want to give you money when you need it. So part of that has to do with risk, but most of it has to do with the fact that, it's probably not a good way to start the relationship. So pause there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bora. So, a relationship, I got this keyword. So, turn to Ms. Tenley. How to build relationship between, the business and also the investor.
Thank you. So I do, Bora's hit on a lot of this, but I do feel like relationships are built on trust. And sometimes, when you're starting a relationship with an investor, I think you have a very clear idea of what you want to learn from that investor. And when you approach an investor, you want an investor that you think will have good chemistry with you, that their vision for how they invest in companies is aligned with how you want your company to grow as well. And so when you're targeting investors, you should target investors that you feel like you would have good working chemistry with, and that their mandate for how they invest in company also aligns with your company, and then start building the relationship from there. I think frequent engagement is very good. Of course, everybody's very busy, but it's okay to check in once in a while and say, oh, I'm thinking about doing this with my company. Do you have any advice or any ideas? Or maybe some introductions that you could make for me. But it's good to build a genuine relationship with the investors within your network. And that, I think investors in Cambodia are very, very open to help. And a lot of investors here volunteer a lot of their time to support companies, young companies here, so that they can continue to grow. So don't be shy about approaching investors, but also be very respectful of their time and know exactly what you want out of those meetings before you go into them.
Thank you, Tian. I think this is very interesting for us, to keep in mind that before we contact the investor, we need to build relation and, start the preparing ourselves ready for this relation. So, question to Mr. Thierry regarding the opportunities, because you have been saying that you have invested in Cambodia, the Philippines, China, and other countries like Singapore. Which is the market is very tight. So, do you see any opportunity for investing in Cambodia? Because here we have brought a lot of SME who work in the area of agriculture, agro business, and also some of the business like you mentioned. Your wife also already invested in the rice sector. So please.
Yes, I think the answer is, of course it's yes. But like Tin and Bora mentioned, it's about chemistry and finding the right synergy. I think earlier this morning, Bong Ratana mentioned about synergies for some corporate VCs. So this is very important. I want to add, this is a very long-term journey. And it is a journey, and it can go well, and it can go bad. And in my short investing life, I would say in the last 6 years, 7 years, I have lost money, I have made money, and I hope we're still going to make money, So, and there was some mention about impact investor. So sometimes you want to do a good action, and you want to help the entrepreneur. And I think it is very important to have this matching of chemistry, of long-term vision, and what you can bring to each other. So even if it's not a marriage, like Ratana mentioned, it's not exactly a marriage, but it feels like a marriage. So, and sometime in marriage, you don't talk to each other, you think the other person wants something, you want something else. And it's even more difficult with cross-border relations. You need to understand very clearly the execution part, because we are in a business. And like for Lily Food, for example, execution is very important. And this is, and you as an investor, you are not executing. So you need to trust, like Tin mentioned. So in Cambodia, there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of great talent, and we have invested in some of them. But I think we need to see for the long term. And wanting to raise money is, everyone wants to raise money, but the most important is what happens after you raise money. What do you do with the money and how you explain to the investors. I have been in the other side. We also do venture building. We launch our own startups. And when you are about to fail or you are in difficult situation, it's not easy to think, oh, what I'm going to tell the investor. And are you going to tell the truth, or you are not going, or you are going to tell them something else? So you need to be prepared for this. If you get outside money, it means you are inviting somebody to come to eat in your house. Maybe not every day, but every other month. So you need to be able to share your table and maybe some food. So this is what you need to be prepared to do.
Thank you very much, Thierry. I think in terms of preparedness, it's very important for our SME to be ready. You mentioned marriage. It is very important term for me. I regard, SME as a groom and investor as the price. So in terms of preparedness, what kinds of criteria or, readiness checklist that they need to do for the groom before the bride can see that this is beautiful groom that I want to get married. So the question is to all the panelists. Just want to see your view. Maybe we start from Tien Ly. Yeah.
So if I were going to approach an investor for money, I first would want to make sure that I have a very solid business plan. And so and I understand how my company is operating, where I make money, where I have some issues, where I have opportunities to grow the company, and which parts of the businesses are not doing well. Because when I approach the investor, they're always going to say, how much money do you want? And what are you going to use it for? And how am I going to get it back? And so we have to be very prepared to answer those three questions. How much money do you need to raise? What are you going to use that money for? And how are you going to give that money back to the investor? And another point, I think, is how long it's going to take for that investor to get the money back. And so I think the first thing I would do is to get my business plan in order and be prepared to answer those questions.
So I think to add on this, I think this morning it was mentioned as well earlier about accounting and about processes. So this is very important. It's very important that you are very prepared with your accounting, your books, and even if in Cambodia, we are still in evolution, but sooner or later, we will have to be compliant more and more. And this is one of the paths to get international investor, more in Cambodia. I think Bong Ratana mentioned there was not so many regional investors and so on, but actually the question is why and how can we bring them in? And one of the main points is compliance, to be at the standard. I think we listened from Lily Food example, and having international standard in that field with HACCP or ISO. It's the same in the other industries. So the more you are compliant, the more you reach international standard, the more your accounting is solid, and you have audited financial statement, or you're ready to have audited financial statement. You don't need to have the big four. You can have the ones just below, just under that. But at least to be ready for that, because this is, it's mandatory. It's like, it's the standard actually in other countries. So if we want Cambodia to be growing, we will need to be leaning to be at this standard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thierry. That is very valid point. I agree with you that setting a very good standard should be very legitimate to work with the VC. So it's your turn, Mr. Bora.
Thank you. Very, very interesting and fun question. So if getting the investment is like getting married, then fundraising is like the attraction, right? It's the chai chau part of the whole process is how I would describe it. And maybe I'll focus on that because, yeah, of course we know that marriage is important and there's trust, communication, and all that stuff. And by the way, I'm not married, so I shouldn't be talking about that part. But yeah, I think sometimes, when families, Cambodian families try to get married, they want to know who the other family is, right? So there is due diligence on what's the background of the family, what's their reputation, how do people talk about them behind their back. And so it's the same for startups, before you make the investments, Thierry and I will probably ask, all the people that work in their industry, what's their reputation? Have they cheated other people before? Have they done something that is not ethical? Things of that nature will come up. So that's part of financial due diligence. That's part of making sure that you have a good reputation, make sure that you have good relationship with your suppliers, so on and so forth. After that, I think it's also about marketing yourself deliberately. And so I always read stuff in the news about new companies coming up. And one of the nicest things, to show that you're good is actually not you telling people, oh, I'm good. It's having other people talk good about yourself, right? The news, partners and things like that. So that's also some public relations to manage. And the third piece is don't be afraid if there are multiple parties pursuing you, which may be different from an engagement process. But I'll give you an example of Nyam24. When we were trying to invest into Nyam24, there was a very, very big Oknya that wanted to invest at the same time. He was giving a very high valuation. He wants 50%. He wants a lot of control rights, and which is all the things that we actually don't want. We want very little control. We want small shares. We want valuation to be okay, not too expensive. And so we were really fighting for that position to be chosen. So I don't know if the investor is the bride or the groom in this case, but we were competing with someone else. And when you're in a competition, that means that the terms are better for the startups. That means that you have a choice. That means that there is a shorter timeline by which the deal could be done. The other example is with Baramai, which is a company that's founded by Laura Mom. She's very famous. I've always wanted to invest. And the thing is, she said no to me many years, two years. And so sometimes a no actually gives you, gives the other side more inclination to participate. And so sometimes a no is actually a really good way to getting a yes, if you know how to use that methodology. So really fun question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, all right, we have gone through the discussion regarding the funding process and also what kind of criteria, requirement, or due diligence process that we will do if we want to invest in any company. Just want to ask you regarding the rounds of financing, because I'm very very interested and curious to know, which round of the investment stage that you want to go in. Early stage, seed stage, or growth stage, or any other stage that you think the most important to, to expand the business operation of the business that you want to invest in. Maybe start with Thierry, yeah?
Okay, so as syndicate angel investors, what we do is pre-seed, seed, and we could go, following up to, bridge just before the Series A. Series A usually is for our friends, venture capitals or the bigger funds. You saw the phase from Pongratana earlier, and where we come in place is we try to co-invest with some VCs. We try to co-invest with some family office. I think we did not discuss about family office, but there are starting to be some family office in Cambodia. We invest with some of them. The same as we invest with some family office in Europe and in Singapore. And why do we do that? Is because we don't have the same team and bandwidth as a smart, Sadif has, for example. So by co-investing, we make sure that they do the right due diligence and we can ride along, and then we can provide more flexibility as well. So, but we also do that with our friends. We have, when I mentioned syndicate investors, it means that we are like 50, 100, 200, 300, 700, or 1,000 investors sharing deal flow and opportunities. So when this happens, you can discuss with people who have expertise, experience in that particular industry, and who can share if this is a good opportunity or not. So we go in the early stage, and we try to follow on. So this is this is what we do.
Thank you, Thierry. So early stage for you. So what about Mr. Bora as a VC?
So yeah, I guess our company invests not only just VC, but also later stage and even public stocks as well. But I'll focus a bit on the early stage side. So given that a venture capital fund has a limit number of years, and we're kind of in year 5, so that means that we don't have too much time before we have to give back money to the investors in our fund. That means that it's tougher for us to invest into very, very early. It's much easier to invest in more mature companies with more track record, more traction, and so on and so forth. But I think as a general rule, it's actually much easier in some ways to do bigger deals. And that's why a lot of investors prefer to do later stage companies, even though the price might be more expensive. Yeah, I think from a risk perspective, that's also the case. That it's a bit less risky when you have audited financials, when you have a lot of visibility to the business. So at the moment, we are a bit more focused on later stage companies.
Okay, thank you. What about Jin Lee? What advice you want to give to the investor or to the business regarding the stages of investment?
I would say that a lot of companies need investment. So they need capital, of course, that's why they have investment. But what's more important is that they have the support that they need to have access to information, have access to professional support services, like good accounting firms so that they can professionalize their books, and have access to customers So it's great if their investor could give them access to a market so that they could sell their products as well. And so now when people are looking for investors, it's not so much money that they're looking for, because there seems to be quite a bit of money going around the market, but having an investor who doesn't want to run your company but gives you a lot of support so that you can continue to help grow their investment, but also they can grow the company together so that they'll have a good return.
All right, I think we got all the answers regarding the stage, and I think right now I should open the floor from the audience. Whether they are very keen to understand the process, or what kinds of criteria, or how they can prepare themselves ready to meet with the VC or investment angel or the advisor in this field. So I open the floor right now. Please ask question, both here physically or please, Wong Ratana.
What do you prefer?
There are three ways. One is directly. So my firm, we have social media, we have LinkedIn, we have some people find Facebook messages, which I don't recommend. But directly, the easiest thing would be to, if you have a pitch deck or something, just share it on email. It's not very hard to find, or on LinkedIn and what have you. The second piece is indirectly. So if if you are getting introduced by Tien or Thierry to me, I would certainly give it a lot more priority than if it's a cold email. So that could come from being in an association, so CWEA, JCI. If you know a bigger network, that means that there's people that is going to vouch for your reputation, and that's much easier. I think the third piece is something I mentioned before, is that create an aura around you. Have us contact you. That's probably the best way to go. And in Cambodia, it's not so hard to get the media's attention, because they're always craving for content. It's not very hard to create social media presence. And I find that despite what you feel about social media, if you don't have a social media presence, people sometimes don't give you credit for being there. So it's almost a necessity, especially if you're in a consumer business. It's now become such a important thing. So I think those three things are three strategies you could use. What I also will mention is that if you are very serious about raising money in the next 12 to 24 months, you should start what's called an investor newsletter, where you write what happened to your company within the last month. Here are some things that you're very proud of. Here's something that's not going well. Because that really helps the investor get a very quick update on you without having to spend an hour speaking in coffee, and just a very short email that goes through a big list of potential investors. That makes it much easier for you to spend your time and be disciplined about having a structure for that.
And maybe the same question, to Thierry. For angel investor, what would be the best way, to get access to them?
Well, you can contact Bong Ratana, and then she will make the introduction. So, I think maybe we should create some kind of platform for contacting the ecosystem. We all, I think a lot of the investors know who are the other investors in Cambodia, and also you have a lot of informal. I think you mentioned some Oknyas, some Lok Chum Tiu. They are not necessarily part of any network that you heard today. There's also this family office that starting to being built. So, just reach out to us, and we'll see how we can do.
But by curiosity, do you answer to all the emails that you receive?
So, we used to, and indeed, like Bora mentioned, before when I started to invest, I almost said yes to everything. Now we almost say no to everything. Why? Because we need, of course, more quality of deals. It's not easy to spend time, and you need a recommendation, you need credibility. I think you also need to understand why you need to raise funds. Why do you want to raise funds? So do you want to raise gross capital fund because you are already having so much inventory or so much products, and you need to have a bigger production capacity to increase your business, and then you will look for certain type of investors. If you just starting and you want someone to help you, like Tin mentioned, like more like advice, more like moral support, more like introducing you to clients, you need another type of investor. So you also need to understand which investors you want for you, like a marriage, right? So you're not going to date any guy or any girl. You need to understand what can they bring to you. So you need to do your research. So for example, if you're looking for 100 million, no need to contact me. You know, you maybe contact other people. So I think this is very important, that you do your own work. I mean, the people here or others in Cambodia's ecosystem do the right research, and then you select who you want, and then you find who do I know, who know someone who maybe know this person, because usually this is how it works, and this is the best way also, because it will help you, it will help them to have not like a mismatching, because the person who will introduce, they are responsible also. They will not introduce you if they will lose face or if they will have issue later on. So I think this is very important, especially in Cambodia. I will not introduce anybody to Bora, because then next time he will not believe me anymore, right? So yeah, you have to consider this. So now when we receive inquiries on LinkedIn, emails, or other forms through friends, well, we have to filter, and so this filtering is very, very important. So I don't really have a clear answer, sorry, but try your luck. Please don't hesitate, don't be shy. This is what entrepreneurship is. You need to be daring, you need to take your chance. So most likely, we don't really say no just like that also. We are going to ask questions, we have questionnaires, we can ask, we have a list of questions. So you have to be prepared also with this. What is your business? What do you do? How much you're raising? For what? What do you expect to achieve with this money? So it's very clear for us. When we look at it, we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and we need to be able to understand what you do, why you need the money, what can we do for you, and what can you do for us also. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Thierry. I think this is comprehensive answer. We have to have the clear plan and vision before contacting the VC and investor and investment angel. So, any further question from the yes?
Thank you so much for the very insightful and also like interactive discussion. So I'm Watana from UNDP Cambodia, and maybe I would like to shift the attention of the discussions from being like toward the MSME, but rather toward the ecosystem partner, like who support the MSME. So the question is mainly about what would be your perspective and or recommendations to the ecosystem partner to actually fill in the gap to support MSME to get ready for the fundraising opportunity or even venture capital investment. Thank you.
You have any specific panelists to ask?
Any panelist can take. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe Chin Lee first. I think it's very fit to you.
Thank you. I actually think that there are a lot of resources and a lot of players into investment readiness in the market. And there are various organizations like She Investments, Impact Hub, all working on building accelerators and helping companies become investable. But what I think the market needs now is a program to help companies that have received investment, because now companies have investment, but what next, right? And that support, I think, is not available yet in the market, and I would encourage ecosystem players to help support companies that have become investment ready, who have received investment, and to help them grow and support them to grow. So that we can have really good exits coming out of Cambodia, and then bigger investors will come into our market too.
So Watana, I hope this answers your question. I would love to have one more question before we close this panel discussion. Here or by online? Yeah, the Director General of Cambodia Post.
Well, so I just have like a very short question regarding to Bora and Thierry. What should be, because when we listen what you describe, we should be a beautiful bride to get you marriage. So it seems difficult for SME, So it's better to keep you coming to us, not to seek to get your financing. Anyway, so what would be the short period or the maximum period to get financing from VC or private equity? And what would be your ROI target when you decide to finance SME? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the insightful question. I have to say that venture capital and private equity is a very, very inefficient way to fund companies. I think, I get that it's a very new part of the financing structures, these funds. So I actually don't think that we have that much effect on the overall economy. I think the banking system is a bit more effective. I think, Cambodian people, friends, families, associates, partners who are doing investments is actually a much bigger volume. And we're talking, I think, maybe 95 to 5. So I would have to say, I agree with you, we are not very good. And, you saw the slides, 1% of all the deals are funded. So 99%, of what happens with the other 99%? Well, actually, a lot of them are going to be great companies. We just don't have the capacity to fund them. So, I think to be managing expectations, most proposals that we see, we won't get funded. And so from the entrepreneur standpoint, don't rely on it very much. So in terms of returns, the entire portfolio for us, we need a 30% IRR. So that means that the math is that 9 out of 10 companies will fail. So one will have to succeed. And the one that succeeds has to compensate for the other 9 that fails. So mathematically, you want to pick companies that will give you 100 times returns or 300 times return to get you, or 3,000% returns to get you to that 30%. So that's not a very, very encouraging number, to be honest with you. It's sometimes, with the feedback we get from Cambodian, individual investors, that they would rather put money into properties, get the cash flow, get the upside. So why would I spend so much effort over 5-10 years to get 30%? I could just buy, land. So that's not very very encouraging. So but I think maybe in the long run you need competitive companies. You need the SME sectors outside of technology to be having different programs. And I know that right now there's many support programs. You have Ministry of Finance, Khmer Enterprise, you have the SME Bank that will facilitate loans that, or guarantee loans that maybe some of the commercial banks could not do. So there are more things outside of what we do, and I would say that that's probably going to be much more impactful than what we do.
Yeah, I think I agree with Bora, and I think if I can add to the question, especially for angel investors, individual investors, we are looking much more at the longer term than probably the VCs, because it's personal money or with our friends. So we have the ability to look at the long term. Especially if you're not doing very well, you want to continue to support. You have to continue to support the company. Now, what I think is maybe starting, or what we can start also in Cambodia, is to work more with the big companies. I recently joined OCIC. So OCIC is actually the group has a partnership with your entity, and it has been, OCIC is now one of the large conglomerate in Cambodia. It's into education with Cambodia University of Science and Technology, with medical center, hospitality, infrastructure, and so on, and real estate. So. And what we can see is that some other conglomerates and some other groups, they have all started as entrepreneurs. They are all actually entrepreneurs, and they all started with almost nothing, and they have managed to grow and become successful entrepreneurs. Successful conglomerate. So these are, I think, some of the potential investors also for some of the SMEs, or potential partners, and from partners, just commercial partners, or any kind of partnership that can provide synergies for your companies. And then it can maybe grow into acquisition, and then we can move into merger and acquisition, and then private equity, and so on. So I think this has not been very common in Cambodia yet, but we are seeing some deals that are happening. And as the country grows, as the economy grows, there will be some consolidations. We see that in MFI, for example, or the banking sectors. I'm sure in the manufacturing sectors, we saw some deals in the pharmaceutical sectors, some bigger company acquiring smaller companies. So why not for SMEs? And then for the SMEs or MSMEs to become part of a bigger group can be a good exit, or can be a good journey. And then you become part, you have a bigger platform to play, in your field of expertise. So this could be one area we can cooperate.
Well, thank you very much for the question from the audience and the comprehensive and insightful answer by our panelists. Actually, I hate to close the session, but because of the time limitation, I need to do the closing. But before the closing, I have final question to you regarding the tips and recommendation for the SME to get their chances in success, in getting success in raising fund for their business.
I guess there's not really one thing that you could do, but I would say just to always have a plan and be prepared. And so everything starts with planning first. So when you want to raise fund, sit down and start with your plan about how you're going to do it, who you need to talk to, and then follow that plan accordingly.
Thierry, please.
I think we touched on this earlier. So I would say I also have been in the other side, helping startups to raise funds and even ourselves to try to raise funds for some of our venture and some of our projects. And I can tell you, it's not easy. Actually, it's very difficult. So my advice is you need to be very persistent, perseverant, hardworking, and don't give up also. Never give up. I mean, you are entrepreneurs, you are MSMEs, meaning that either you are a leader or you are leading a team. So you need to be very, very motivated and be able to still, after you get no, still continue and try to get a yes. That's very, very important. You need to be very motivated and resilient and accept that you will get a lot of rejection. So being able to fall down and get up and go again and put your smile on your face, hey, you know, so this is very difficult. It's really not easy. And all the success story you see or you hear, for sure they have had a lot of rejection also, except maybe for our friend from Three Corners. He was very lucky to get the angel investors right away, but it's 1 out of 100 example. So resilience, be prepared, yes.
So everything right we got was about people, and everything wrong we got was about people. So, you know, when we look at the pitch deck, we look at the business, we're almost always right that the market is what we expected, except COVID. But what we got wrong is people, you know. After the investment, you know, 3-4 years down the line, sometimes the entrepreneur just run out of gas. They just get tired. It's a very tough process. We're people with, you know, mental health, well-being to consider. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the team fights among themselves, you know. Sometimes a founder did something that they made a mistake, they try to cover it up, and the mistake become bigger and bigger. So I think my advice is that throughout, you know, your process of fundraising, make sure that you give the right impressions of who you are and be completely honest. And, you know, every impression counts in a sense that when you negotiate and you're too easy, that means you probably don't try hard enough to get the best deal, right? When you are too frustrated, when you don't get what you want, maybe that's not very constructive either. So everything sort of counts in your interaction with the investor. So I would focus, again, on long-term relationship. If you don't get the funds you want, if you get a no, that doesn't mean the end of it. You just keep on going. And yeah, focus on the relationship through those interactions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your tips and recommendation. So I would say that, you know, SME don't lose hopes. We still have room for raising fund. And the advice that I can summarize from our speakers that people get the rejection, but rejection does not mean that failure. So you need to keep it up, and one time you will get the yes. So you will have the chance increase in getting success in raising fund. So thank you very much for all the experience and knowledge that you have shared to the audience. And I also thank the audience for ask question. So let me close this panel discussion. Thank you very much.
សូមគោរពអរគុណវាគ្មិនកិត្តិយសនិងអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលសម្រាប់កិច្ចពិភាក្សាប្រកបដោយអត្ថន័យអង្គពិធីទាំងមូលជាទីគោរពជាកិច្ចចុងក្រោយនាងខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញលោកជំទាវទឹករ៉េតកំរងរដ្ឋលេខាធិការក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មថ្លែងសន្ទរកថាបិទសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញ
សូមអរគុណយើងបានចំណាយពេលជាង3ម៉ោងដើម្បីស្ដាប់នៅលទ្ធផលនៃការសិក្សាបង្ហាញដោយលោកស្រីរតនាក៏ដូចជាការចែករំលែកនៅបទពិសោធន៍លោកជំទាវកែមុំ Mr. John ជាពិសេសចុងក្រោយនេះយើងមានវាគ្មិនទាំង3នាក់ជាមួយនឹងអ្នកសម្របសម្រួលលេជាសូមអរគុណណាស់ដែលបានចូលរួមថ្ងៃនេះហើយវាគ្មិននឹងបានចែករំលែកនៅបទពិសោធន៍ចំណេះជំនាញលក្ខខណ្ឌផ្សេងមានបូរ៉ាចាបូរ៉ាមាន Thierry ហើយ Tinley ចាសូមអរគុណដែលបានចែករំលែកនៅបទពិសោធន៍ទាំងអស់នេះហើយនេះគឺជាវេទិកាមួយដ៏សំខាន់ដែលលោកស្រីបានអញ្ជើញមកហើយបានផ្សព្វផ្សាយជូនទៅ SME ភាគច្រើនដែលបានអញ្ជើញចូលរួមក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះគឺបានជា SME ដែលបានចូលរួមនៅក្នុងកម្មវិធីរបស់យើងគឺ Go for eCamp ដែលជាកម្មវិធីមួយពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងការជំរុញ SME នៅក្នុងការចូលរួមប្រើប្រាស់ទាញយកអត្ថប្រយោជន៍នៃបច្ចេកវិទ្យាព័ត៌មានចាពាណិជ្ជកម្មអេឡិចត្រូនិកហើយថ្ងៃនេះគឺពិសេសសម្រាប់ពាក់កន្លងមកយើងបង្រៀនពន្យល់ពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងតើធ្វើម៉េចដើម្បីមានចំណេះជំនាញនៅក្នុងការប្រើប្រាស់ទាញយកអត្ថប្រយោជន៍ពីពាណិជ្ជកម្មអេឡិចត្រូនិកហើយថ្ងៃនេះពិសេសបន្ថែមទៀតដោយសារបាននាំមកបង្ហាញជូនអំពីលទ្ធផលនៃការសិក្សារបស់យើងថាតើមានប្រភពធនធានអ្វីផ្សេងទៀតដើម្បីសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមរបស់យើងអាចទាញយកស្វែងរកនៅហិរញ្ញប្បទានដើម្បីចាប់ផ្ដើមដូចជាពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួនហើយខ្ញុំគិតថាបញ្ហានេះគឺជាបញ្ហាសំខាន់សម្រាប់ SME ក៏ដូចជាសម្រាប់អាជីវកម្មផ្សេងទៀតផងដែរអញ្ចឹងជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតសូមអរគុណណាស់ដែលវាគ្មិនបានអញ្ជើញចំណាយពេលវេលាដ៏មានតម្លៃចែករំលែកបទពិសោធន៍ចំណេះដឹងជំនាញហើយអ្វីដែលវាគ្មិនបានជម្រាបជូនចែករំលែកចុងក្រោយនោះគឺសំខាន់មានប្រភពទុនហើយប៉ុន្តែមិនមែននៅចង់បានភ្លាមទេត្រូវតែសហគ្រាសអាជីវកម្មនោះត្រៀមខ្លួន prepare ចាមានផែនការសម្រាប់ខ្លួនឯងចាមានផែនការហើយមានផែនការអាជីវកម្មមានផែនការហិរញ្ញវត្ថុហើយសំខាន់ត្រូវតែជាអាជីវកម្មដែលចុះបញ្ជីត្រឹមត្រូវចាអញ្ចឹងបញ្ជាក់ជូនម្ដងទៀតចុះបញ្ជីគឺនៅក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មដូចជាការចុះបញ្ជីកំណើតអញ្ចឹងចាមុននឹងចាប់ផ្ដើមអាជីវកម្មត្រូវមានបញ្ជីកំណើតពេលដែលយើងកើតមកជាបុគ្គលពេញសិទ្ធិហ្នឹងត្រូវតែមានបញ្ជីកំណើតចាហើយបន្ទាប់មកបើសិនណាជាចង់មកថាដូចលោកជំទាវកែមុំលោកចង់បង្កើតរោងចក្រផលិតនំហ្នឹងលោកត្រូវចុះបញ្ជីសូមអាជ្ញាប័ណ្ណពីក្រសួងថាបានពាក់ព័ន្ធចាយើងមានលំដាប់លំដោយរបស់យើងអញ្ចឹងទេត្រឡប់មកវិញគឺចង់បញ្ជាក់ជូនថារៀបចំខ្លួនឲ្យបានមាំទាំចាមានផែនការហើយក្រៅពីនោះគឺមានការបដិញ្ញាចិត្តមានការតស៊ូហើយវាគ្មិនបានរំលែកជូនហើយផ្ដាំផ្ញើហើយថាតស៊ូព្យាយាមចាតស៊ូព្យាយាមទោះបីទេម្ដងហើយទេប្រមាណដងហើយក៏បើសិនណាជាយើងមានតម្រូវការត្រូវតែតស៊ូទៅមុខទៀតចាហើយបញ្ហាសំខាន់មួយទៀតដែលខ្ញុំចាប់អារម្មណ៍គឺការបង្កើតបាននៅ network ចាពីព្រោះនេះពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងក្រៅពីការបង្កើតបាននៅកិត្តិស័ព្ទសម្រាប់ក្រុមហ៊ុនខ្លួនឯងរួចហើយភាពស្មោះត្រង់ចាតម្លាភាពនៅក្នុងការរៀបចំអាជីវកម្មនោះហើយសំខាន់គឺត្រូវមាន network ចាអញ្ចឹងយើងគម្រោងរបស់យើង Go for eCamp នេះយើងមានក្រុមហ៊ុនសហគ្រាសជាង100ទេជិត200ហើយដែលបានដាក់លក់នៅផលិតផលរបស់យើងជិតជាង1000មុខដែរនៅក្នុង platform របស់យើងអញ្ចឹងការពង្រីក network នេះគឺមានសារៈសំខាន់ណាស់អាជីវកម្មដើម្បីឲ្យស្គាល់ទាំងក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មថាតើត្រូវដាក់លក់យ៉ាងម៉េចបើសិនណាជាមានផលិតផលចូលនៅក្នុងទីផ្សារអនឡាញនេះដើម្បីលក់ទៅអន្តរជាតិហើយបើសិនជាខ្វះប្រភពធនធានហ្នឹងយើងក៏មានដៃគូសហការក្រសួងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុសហគ្រិនខ្មែរក៏លោកមានប្រភពទុនមួយចំនួនផងដែរហើយថ្ងៃនេះទៀតបានចែករំលែក diversify ប្រភពធនមួយទៀតចាប្រភពទុនរបស់យើងមួយទៀតពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងវិនិយោគិនមូលធននេះដែលមិនមានជាការងាយស្រួលទេហើយលោកស្រីក៏មិនមែនតែឆ្លើយគ្រប់អ៊ីមែលនឹងដែរចាអញ្ចឹងនៅទីនេះមានលោកស្រីរតនាគាត់ជាអ្នកស្រាវជ្រាវពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងប្រភពទុននេះហើយជម្រាបដែរថាប្តីលោកស្រី Mr. Sven នេះក៏ជាទីប្រឹក្សាក្រសួងពាណិជ្ជកម្មជាយូរមកហើយដែរចាស់ជិត20ឆ្នាំហើយអញ្ចឹងយើងមាន network របស់យើងហ ហើយតាមរយៈនោះខ្ញុំគិតថាលោកស្រីរតនាអាចជាបង្គោលនៅក្នុងការស្គាល់ព្រោះនៅក្នុងអាជីវកម្មយូរអញ្ចឹងមានគ្នាច្រើនណាស់តែមិន VC នឹងអ្នកណាគេខ្លះហើយ Angel investor នឹងអ្នកណាខ្លះដើម្បីឲ្យបើសិនណាជាក្រុមការងារយើងមិនក្រុមការងារទេសហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមនៅទីនេះក្តីអនឡាញក្តីឬក៏ដែលស្គាល់គ្នាអីមានតម្រូវការហិរញ្ញវត្ថុហើយជឿជាក់ទៅលើក្រុមហ៊ុនរបស់យើងមាំទាំមានផែនការគ្រប់គ្រាន់ហើយត្រូវបានចង់មានដៃគូដើម្បីសហការគ្នាពង្រីកអាជីវកម្មនឹងយើងអាចទៅចែកពិភាក្សាគ្នាបានចា៎អញ្ចឹងជាថ្មីម្ដងទៀតសូមអរគុណចំពោះវាគ្មិនទាំងអស់ដែលបានអញ្ជើញរួមក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះហើយក៏សូមអរគុណចំពោះសមាជិកសមាជិកាអង្គសិក្ខាសាលាទាំងអស់ទាំងនៅទីនេះដូចជានៅអនឡាញដែលបានអញ្ជើញចូលរួមដើម្បីយើងរួមគ្នាគិតរួមគ្នាធ្វើដើម្បីការរីកចម្រើនរបស់សហគ្រាសធុនតូចនិងមធ្យមដូចជាសហគ្រាសធំទាំងឡាយដើម្បីការរីកចម្រើនរបស់ក្រុមហ៊ុនយើងក៏ដូចជាការរីកចម្រើនរបស់ប្រទេសជាតិរបស់យើងដែរចា៎ចឹងសូមអរគុណសូមជូនពរអាយដាមលោកជំទាវលោកអញ្ញាលោកស្រីមានសុខភាពល្អសុភមង្គលហើយសូមទទួលបានជោគជ័យនៅគ្រប់ការប្រកបអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួនចា៎សូមបិទអង្គប្រជុំអង្គពិធីចា៎សូមអរគុណ
សូមគោរពថ្លែងអំណរគុណយ៉ាងជ្រាលជ្រៅចំពោះលោកជំទាវរដ្ឋលេខាធិការសម្រាប់សន្ទរកថាបិទប្រកបដោយខ្លឹមសារអង្គពិធីទាំងមូលជាទីគោរពនាងខ្ញុំសូមប្រកាសបិទកម្មវិធីនិងសូមគោរពអញ្ជើញអង្គពិធីទាំងមូលពិសាអាហារថ្ងៃត្រង់ដែលមានរៀបចំជូននៅជាន់ទី5នៅសន្តាគារ Dara Airport សូមអរគុណExcellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you can have lunch prepared on 5th floor